Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Transfer Talk show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. The striking department has been a big talking point amongst us Liverpool fans in the last few days. So I thought it was only right that we do a dedicated show, possibly talking about targets that Liverpool could be identifying as additions to the squad this season. So it's only right that I brought on Liverpool 12th man to dive into potential targets and give his analysis on the striking department. So, firstly, 12th man, thank you for coming on the show. How you doing today?
Absolutely. Pleasure to be on the show, and thank you for the invite. And I'm doing well, doing well.
Good to hear. Now, I'm going to ask you a question before we talk about the targets, and that is our current squad. So there's a lot of rumors circulating in terms of potential departures. So you've got Darwin Núñez, who's been linked to a move away from the club. You've also got Diaz, who's received strong interest from Saudi as well as Barcelona.
Mhm.
Chiesa is a name that's been popped up quite a bit in terms of return to Serie A. And even Jota, he's been a player that has been prolific for us over the years, but availability hasn't been one of his key traits in recent times as well. So,
Mhm.
who do you think will depart from our attack this summer?
It's a good question. I don't really. I know a lot of people believe it's going to be Nunez. I think Nunez is most likely the odds on first candidate to go from the list.
Yeah.
Um, if I had to be pushed into a corner for it, I'd say, you could even make an argument that a Ben Doak might be someone that moves on.
Yeah.
Um, I don't. I think currently, I know that they're working out a deal now, but I don't see Jaden Dan's playing a part early in the season, at least for us, or whether he comes back off a loan or something like that. But I think they're going to work out a loan deal for him to work and develop and get a real solid run as possibly Sunderland's point person. But when it comes to our, the basic starters that we all know of, I think Nunez is most likely to be one of the names that departs. I know people want Chiesa, or not want, but think possibly Chiesa is going to be a second name on that list. I hope not. I think Chiesa has a lot of not only potential, but he has a lot of talent that we could utilize. Um, and there are shouts for even Lucho. I think the only player that is assured to be here is going to be Mohamed Salah, Cody Hakpo, and and then once you get past that, it's pretty much a coin toss as to whether they stay or whether they go.
It's funny you mentioned Gakpo because he's been recently linked with a move away from the club, with Bayern Munich being his potential suitor. The rumor is that they're willing to spend 75 million on the player. Do you think that's a deal that Liverpool would consider? And if you were in Richard Hughes' shoes, would you accept that offer?
Say the deal again. I didn't hear the first part of the deal.
So the current rumor is that Bayern are willing to spend 75 million to sign Cody Gakpo. So my
Yes.
question is, would you accept that,
No.
or would that be rejected due to Gakpo's importance in the team?
Yeah, that's not getting no. I think Cody's showing that he has tremendous worth.
Yeah,
Um, whether it's as the 9 for I get it. He's played the 9, hasn't necessarily worked out for us completely, but he has played
yeah,
the 9 for Holland, has played well for them as a 9 as well. Um, I also think that there is a possibility that you might see him as a 9 here and there next year, depending on whether we do get a outright number 9.
yeah.
Um, I also know that this coach loves Cody. He really, really rates him. And what I mean by that is that there could be arguments that I think that he's played him in opportunity or played him in games that he should not have played him
Yeah.
in. And he rates him that heavily or highly that I don't think that you allow for that kind of a player to walk out the door for 75 million. It's a lot of money, albeit, but what do you get back for 75 million? What player are you getting in for 75 million? And you said 75 million euros, correct?
It's pounds. So it's
Okay, 75 million
90, I think
pounds.
90 odd million euros. Yeah.
Okay. So that would be unique because often Bayern Munich doesn't really spend that kind of money for
No.
players, especially since they have such a a natural treadmill going to them from the German prospects.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just couldn't see Slot saying, "Let's go with it. Let's go."
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, with there's been quite a few players that are, question marks in regards to the future. I think, to just sell players left, right, and center makes no sense. You want to have stability in the team, and I feel like with Gakpo, who I actually feel like was one of our consistent performers last season, there's no point of just selling him for the sake of generating money because, not to sound funny, but 75 million in this day and age is not, a crazy amount of money to just sign a top player, in my opinion. So that's something, it sounds good, 75 million for one of your players, but to reinvest that into another player, uh, you're gonna have to either match that offer and sign someone else, or you're going to have to increase that bid depending who your target is. So I think Gakpo, should be one of the players that remains in the team. In terms of other players that you mentioned, I expect Dan's to be loaned out next season. He didn't get much game time for Sunderland, so that's a bit of a concern that he's picking up little fully fit uh, next season, and I think another move to Championship would be great for his development. And if we feel like there's potential there, if there's a player that can come into the first team fold, that's something Liverpool will probably consider next season, as in 2026 onwards. Um, Chiesa, it's a very tricky one because I really like Chiesa, rate him very, very highly. I just feel like, with what we've seen this season, Arne Slot doesn't seem to favor the player that much. He hasn't utilized him as much as he could have, in my opinion. So, you know, you can look at it both ways. Is it because Chiesa, was still getting accustomed to the training method, like still getting accustomed to the pace and the physicality of the league, so the coach didn't want to overuse the player too much? Or was it just as simple as, he doesn't rate the player or he doesn't trust him enough to utilize him in the squad? So that's going to be defining in terms of what happens with Chiesa. I think it's 50-50. If I was to, be forced to say an answer, I think Chiesa will most likely leave Liverpool, if I'm being honest. Not something that I would like to see, but I could see him leaving. But it also depends on what happens around the team as well, because if Lucho ends up leaving this summer, then it might be worth keeping Chiesa as well. So then he can be a player for that left hand side and can even be an option up top. So it might be worth keeping Chiesa, in my opinion. Lucho, I just feel like, I've seen social media posts of him and his girlfriend, thanking the fans. So it seems quite clear that, they're heading towards the exit door, which I don't think is the right decision based on what he's produced this season. Because I know Lucho gets a bit of
Come on,
split
be
opinions in the
honest.
fans.
Be
You know how it
honest.
is, because
Be
I think
honest.
me and you have been very vocal about Lucho in the last 12 months, where we feel like it's not justified in terms of how he's been criticized. I feel like he's been one of our top performers. Yes, he hasn't maybe hit into the GA, but he's not done that bad in my opinion. So I feel like he was, in fact, probably one of our best strikers at one point in the team. So you can't just have a player and undermine what he's done for the team. Because I feel like he's a hardworking player. Even if he doesn't get a goal or an assist, he still helps with the team. He still works really hard for the team. So I think it'd be a loss to see Lucho departing the team. The replacement is probably be another debate for another day, because I don't think you can find a like for like replacement for Diaz. I know we've been linked with Rafael Leao today. What are your thoughts on that?
Really, I've not seen that link.
Yes, apparently
I'm
the rumor
not
was that
really, I'm not really.
Liverpool had, had some talks regarding possibly signing. I don't think it's genuine in terms of like, heavy talks or advanced talks.
Mhm.
Would that be a player that appeals to you? Because for me personally, I quite like Rafael Leo. I know he's inconsistent, but on his heyday, he's pretty much unplayable. And I feel like if he was to come to Liverpool, maybe Arne Slot could, revitalize him and make him very effective on that left wing. Would that be the type of signing that you would
I
want?
rather go for I rather see us go for. I'm not over the moon trying to advocate for this player at all, but
Okay.
I'd rather see us go for Nico Williams than Leo. But and I think that could be an obtainable player. But I just wanted to circle back on to the Diaz talk.
Yeah.
Lucho, my guy. Let me tell you this. Lucho. The amount of disrespect that he gets, not only from others, but I understand from the rivals, even occasionally from the neutrals. However, Luis Diaz and sometimes the amount of disrespect that he gets from our own fan base is sometimes extremely disconcerting and difficult to see, because I don't think you could tell me a player on this team that works harder than Lucho on that pitch for their overall combined goal of the club. I don't think you can tell me a player that works not only harder, but is more creative in the sense of being able to create with the ball at his feet, with his dribbling. He's not the best passer on the team. I'm not saying that, but he is certainly the best dribbler. His
Yeah.
work rate is second to none. And I honestly do think that he is the best. He is the best, currently the best left winger in the Premier League. Statistically speaking, he is the best left winger in the league. And I get it, because this is what I mean by the amount of disrespect, not necessarily I'm not talking about our own Reds here, and it's certainly not the chat. Lee Wizkid, big up Lee Wizkid. Ozan Kabak, yes, he plays center back. I know that there are two straight shooters. But when I see these, I still have to do my team of the season, and I'm going to speak about it on the episode. But when I see these team of the seasons being made by other people, other content creators and the likes, some of them don't even think of putting Lucho in the running to be that left wing. And not only do they not put him into the left wing, they figure out other ways to get other players that played maybe like they'll try to get Mabuemo, who played on the right wing as a left wing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, is it that difficult to say that this guy has had the best year as a Red? This has been his best statistical year and eye test for those that go that route. It's been his best year. He's been pretty much every day, all day, consistently available. He's been able to play as our left wing. He's been able to take on a position on the pitch that we've had a problem with finding output from, and that's the striker role. He's one of the few players this year to score a hat trick for us.
Yeah, it's facts.
This guy does not get the proper due from our fan base sometimes. And that's not the reason why that he possibly might leave, not at all. I think that was a very, very tailored conversation or speech or whatever, like text that his wife laid out there. I think his wife laid it out there, I heard, but maybe it was Lucho, but I think it was his wife that gave the one, gave the actual tweet. But it's just very interesting. I think that he's had a great year this year. I would love to hear someone bring up a name who actually played left wing, other than maybe Cody Hackbo, that could contend with the production that he's had as a left wing. And that's how dynamic not only Lucho, but even Cody, who bring two different shots at the apple, I think. And I think that's a unique situation for our team. So I just want to make sure I said that.
No, I have to agree. I think in terms of the Premier League, there hasn't been an outstanding left winger, in my opinion. I feel like Diaz and Gakpo were probably the ones that stood out, in my opinion. And if you look at other leagues, I think players that could rival that numbers would be your Kvaratskhelia and your Barcolas in terms of if you look at the PSG team. But otherwise, in European football, you're not really getting left wingers with a great output. And that's why I'm a bit too unsure in terms of who would be his replacement, because
I'd say that. Because just to interject real quickly, because I know where you're going with that, the statement. However, why I say currently is because the output that we've gotten, I've mentioned this on other episodes, the output that we've gotten from Cody and the output that we've gotten from Lucho combined was the output that we were getting from Sadio Mane.
Yeah.
So, and that's when still, obviously, you have a Salah still scoring 20 some odd goals a year in segments, So it's not as though I necessarily think that, Lucho is going to score 20 plus goals from the side. He's going to be the next Mane for that matter. I'm not going as far as to say that, but what I can say is that Sadio Mane type numbers are being produced by at least two different outputs from us, and that is being Lucho and Cody, and it's phenomenal that we have that type of production. But that's all I wanted to interject.
No, it's all right. So as I was saying, so for me, I find it quite difficult to find a natural replacement for Diaz, because a lot of the left wingers that you mentioned, your Nico Williams and all those type of players, their output hasn't been that great this season. So for me, if you're comparing to Diaz, there's not a lot of players that I feel like will upgrade him in our team in terms of ratio, in terms of goals and assists. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. And I think with Diaz, it's not because of his performance that he's being sold. It's more so, the contractual situation where the club haven't offered him better terms, which is I think is not correct. I think he deserves better terms. I think he may have probably got a contract extension a couple of years ago, but due to the injury that he picked up, it might have stopped the negotiations at that stage. So I feel like if he's leaving, it's not because he's not good enough. I think he's probably understood that Liverpool aren't, or not Liverpool as in us fans, but I'm saying in terms of FSG, they haven't really given his value in terms of what he should be earning, and I feel like it's a little bit disrespectful in terms of him not being a person that earns not the most, but one of the top earners in the team, because he's earning around 50 odd K a week, which is not that high in the modern game. So what, it's going to be sad to see him go, because I do feel like he is a good player, despite what you hear from some certain sections of the fan base. But I do feel like he's a player that always gave his all, and that's what you want from your attackers, right? You want them to fight for the shirt, fight for the cause, and that's exactly what he did, in my opinion. So let's see. Yeah. So let's see what happens.
I get the shout. I get the shout for his salary. I mean, that's primarily the reason why he's going to go.
Yeah.
It's not because he doesn't love the team. It's not because he doesn't love the support of the fans. It's more so, I think it's more so, yes, he understands the fact that this is his last opportunity to get a big paycheck. This is his last opportunity. This is his possibly his last huge pay check extension new
Yeah, he's
contract,
28,
whatever it's
isn't
going
he?
to be.
So, yeah,
And I know people will often use that argument about saying he's underpaid and he was this and he was that. Let's keep it 100. Not against you. I'll just say
yeah.
keep 100 in the sense of he was getting paid 27,000 euros a week in Portugal.
Yeah,
So when he came to Liverpool, he signed a deal for 55,000 pounds
yeah.
a week, or something like that, right? If you do the quick math, that's not only double,
Yeah,
that's more than double. And on top of that, he is playing for a club that often makes incentives be heavily part of deals. So I'm
yeah,
certain that he's gotten portions of his deals or segments of his deals include him getting, bonuses for making Champions League or
yeah,
bonuses for how deep we go into the tournament or bonuses for, this Premier League bonus, probably a nice little bit of change. He is not worried. He's not sitting there, counting his nickels and dimes.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
Worried about how they're gonna pay the electric bill. But I will say that this is certainly, I understand that this is certainly his opportunity to cash in on not only the best year of his career here at Liverpool, but certainly to cash in on the sheer fact that he's been a very, very important component of a team, and he's shown his versatility. And there's reasons why teams like Barcelona would like to bring him in as a part of their team. There's reasons why Saudi Arabia would go as far as to, in many people's assessments, overpay for him to play for them. So I just think that he's a phenomenal talent. I hope that he stays. If he doesn't, then he's not as easy of a component to replace as people make it out to be, though.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think my point was more so that because he's been so good for us over the years, I feel like he was entitled to receive a better salary base, if that makes sense, rather than just for it to be based on incentives. And I feel like this season would have been a great reflection to give him a new contract. But I mean, due to how we operate and FSG, probably looking at his age profile and thinking, he's 28 years old. Um, is it worth us signing maybe a younger profile to replace him? And from Diaz's point of view, maybe this is the time, like you said, where he's still playing at a good level, or I would say probably into his prime levels, to be fair, and he can go on and get a big contract somewhere else, and looks like it could be either Barca or it could be Saudi Arabia. So we'll see in terms of what happens with Diaz. I feel like, unfortunately, he will be leaving the club, so it'll be interesting to see what the club does to replace him this summer. Just gonna go through some of the comments. So Lewis Kid, big up yourself, Lee. Thank you for tuning in. Ozan Kabak, big up Ozzy, big up Ozan Kabak, and likewise to you as well, 12th man, asking how you're doing. Um, Question for you, 12th man. Where do you see Stefan Bajcetic fitting into a squad next season?
Now,
Or
this
does
is a
he
play,
go on another loan?
another season loan.
That's a
Yeah,
two-part question there.
I think that if he were to be put on another loan, that would be more of the writing in the sky. I think that's how they put it. In the sense that he would be, excuse me, he would be certainly moving on to whatever club that we end up getting that loan established with. But if it is going to be, if you honestly want my opinion, I believe that Bajcetic has a place with this team. I know there's a lot of people out there that want a DM. They're out there saying they want to get a DM. The DM market is not as abundant as people think it is. And often some of the names that people are putting out there aren't names that I would push through a crowd to try to go sign. Okay.
Yeah.
So you realistically look at it. We have a young player that knows the system, that knows the club, knows the ins and outs of what it means to be a Liverpool player. He knows what his teammates are all about and how they work and the likes. Albeit he's been away from the club for a little bit, but all the same knows is that they want and need. Had a pretty good preseason, by the way, and is a player that Klopp and even Slot both think has immense potential and talent. I say keep him. I say he's a natural progression of finding out of a player that you're most likely not going to start over Grav, but you could play and give minutes to Grav to recuperate and keep that real spark and edge and vitality that we need from a Gravenberg that some were saying he kind of shaded out from his game towards the end of the season. Maybe because this is the most games he's played, and we play a lot of games, especially going for 4 competitions at one point. It's a lot of games being played. So I hope that Bajcetic could come back and actually prove to be a real promising alternative to our midfield.
So if Bajcetic was to return to a squad, would that be, I guess, classified as a new signing to the team, or would you still think that we need to make another addition to that centre midfield role?
No, I don't think. I think he would be like, if you want to look at it that way, yes, he'd be like a new signing.
Okay, that's interesting. I still have question marks over Bajcetic, to be honest with you. I think if he was to come in this season, I'd see him more as a squad player, but I would still want us to sign another player. I know I sound greedy there when I'm saying I want more midfielders, but I feel like it's an area where we have the quality in terms of the lineup, in terms of McAllister and Gravenberch. But I think the level below, I feel like we just need that one more player that, for me, could be like a deep playmaker in our team. Something we lack at times in games, especially against low block teams where we need creativity from a deeper role. So I feel like that's something we could possibly address. But having said that, I don't think it's a priority position for us. Um, one of the priority positions, in my opinion, is the striker role, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
But it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I think with Bajcetic, he'll definitely come into preseason. I think we'll definitely assess him. Um, I know there's still uncertainty in terms of Endo's future. I would possibly still like to have.
Why are you going out? You're going. Why is everyone going? Now people are going for
I
my main
wanted to go.
guys.
No. For me, I want Endo to stay because you need to have experience in your squad. You need to have those players that know their role, that can come in and put in a shift when required. So for me, I would not like to see Endo leave. But if you hear what the rumors are saying, that could be a player that might be departing this summer. So for me, if you have McAllister, Gravenberch, Endo, Jones, that's 4 midfielders in your double pivot. I would add Bajcetic as your 5th one. But then if I get a new sign, that's 6 midfielders. That's a lot of midfielders, isn't it, for that 2 position role? So it might be where Bajcetic is given a chance, and then we can see next year. Or me personally, I would rather sign a new player and loan him out for another year just to see if he can further his development, because his first loan spell at Salzburg didn't go to plan. That might be due to the way they played, and obviously Pep Linders end up leaving the role as well. The Las Palmas one, I think he definitely suited him. He ended up playing
Yeah.
centre back more so than he played centre mid, so that's an interesting transition as well. I think another loan move, even to La Liga, would be good for his development. So I don't want him to come into the team and not be involved. So it would be better for him to maybe move elsewhere for the time being in a short-term basis, and then re-sign a player that I feel like can rotate with the likes of McAllister and Gravenberch, because Gravenberch, as great as he was, I feel like he looked very tired, very fatigued towards the last stage of the season. So we need to get, I would say, another fresh pair of legs to have more rotation where the coach actually has faith in these players and then can switch the team around, whenever required. So,
Mhm.
so I would like to see another midfielder in, but Bajcetic, I still feel like there's question marks. If does he have the quality to cut it in a Liverpool team? Because Liverpool is not any team. We're at the pinnacle right now. We're Premier League champions. We're going to try and challenge for the Champions League next season. So it's going to be very interesting in terms of the quality. But if I was the sporting director, I'd probably try and sign another midfielder. So we'll see. We'll
All
see
right.
what happens.
All right. I
We'll see.
think I honestly, this is just all, again, I'm not an ITK, but I'm just saying, this all from
Yeah,
my perspectives. We're here for opinions. And in my opinion, I think that Bajcetic has shown his worth by playing exceptionally well for a time when he had to possibly be seen as a potential replacement for one of, if not the best, I will go as far as the best midfielder, the best number 6 that we've had at this club in the past 10 years at least. Okay. Um, and that would be for Flacco when he had to basically, when Flacco was showing some means of fatigue or even injuries, and he had to play he started playing minutes and was implemented in that youth push that you saw from Klopp.
yeah,
Then, as far as another portion of what I think some might be overlooking, again, this is something I just see from my perspective, is that bringing in a midfielder is going to then be just more money that we have to put out there. And if you're looking
yeah,
for a midfielder that has to be obviously over the level Bajcetic is, you're talking about a midfielder that's going to cost quite a bit of coin. So therefore,
yeah.
you
That's
are
true.
taking away from that war chest. And I know that might make people put earmuffs on, but I mean, like, that you're taking away from that transfer budget that you have to go for what we're going to talk
Yeah,
about later on, the strikers, which are
yeah.
even
That's
more
true.
expensive when it comes to the amount of money that you have to put out for some of the players and the market value of them. And
Yeah,
then finally, the part that I would say, and I would emphasize this part as much as the others, and that is when it comes to this team's future, there are 2 names. One name that doesn't necessarily play midfield, but he can play midfield, but he's more going to be probably more of a winger, if not a forward for us. But there's going to be some way, somehow, that this coach starts to try to bring in the talents of a Rio and the talents of a Neone too. Okay,
yeah,
and I think Rio and Trey are both 2 players that we're going to figure out a way to not put a real barrier to their
yeah,
progress. I'm not saying they're going to become starters. I'm not saying they're going to get
yeah,
major minutes, but they are going to get minutes. And that means that that's going to be time, that's going to be moments where other players that you normally would have relied on aren't going to be getting those minutes. They're going to be look towards them. And I think that both of those players are phenomenal young players, very much big promise. And I think that this coach, like the previous coach, has a lot of confidence in their talents. And one last point. There was one last point. When it comes to Bajcetic, we've seen Bajcetic play, like you just said, center half now. He's played for, in La Liga.
mm,
It's a role that we could be. I'm not saying he's going to be the next center half for us, but it's a role that we could utilize as being someone that can fill in a tough spot.
yeah,
We've also seen him be utilized as a right back. We've also
yeah,
seen him obviously been utilized as a center DM. Those are 3 big factors in saying why I'm so heavily I'm vested in this player and seeing how he continues to develop. He's super versatile. He's played in the Europa game for us at right back. He's done a lot of different things for us, and I think that I honestly think that he could be looked at as a new signing, but he could also be a player that could be utilized as someone that doesn't demand starting minutes, but
yeah,
certainly is someone that could help those minutes when needed.
yeah. I think versatility will be very important in our squad next season. So he's definitely an option. I'm very intrigued to see how he does in preseason because that will give me an indication in terms of what level he's at as well. Because if
Mhm.
he, I'm not saying it's going to be where if he has a poor game, sell him. You can always, get a signal into the how a player is performing and gelling with the team around him. So I'm but I kind of need to see it where he's wearing a red shirt as well and see how he's been embedded with the other guys in the team as well. So it's going to be a big summer for Bashti. It could be a defining one as well for him because if he really performs well, it can definitely cement a position for him in the squad. But I don't feel like, if he doesn't work out for him, I do feel like, he does have a future at the club. I definitely think there's a talented player there. I just don't know right now if he's at the level that we need in the team. That's only my reservation. But in terms of what you mentioned in terms of versatility, you're spot on because I remember him playing right back under Klopp in the Europa League as well. We've seen him play CDM. I know for the youth team at Liverpool, he played centre back on a numerous occasions as well. So it wasn't like Las Palmas was the only time he's played centre back. He has done it previously as well. And in Spain they've already, calling him the next Busquets, so they're already giving nicknames there as well. So there's definitely a player there that's talented. So let's see. I definitely feel like midfield would not be the priority position now. It I'm going to use this word, which probably comes up a lot amongst content creators. If there's an opportunity to sign a top level midfielder, then I feel like Liverpool would go in for that type of player. But it's not a position that we need to go, you know, all guns blazing and prioritize because there's other positions that I feel like we need to improve on and then hopefully have a more complete squad where we're able to rotate a lot more next season. So it's going to be interesting, nonetheless, in terms of how Liverpool do business this season. Just going to go through some more comments here. Lewis Kid agreeing with you earlier on 12 in regards to Luis Diaz. JK, big up JK. I hope
Big
you're
up, JK.
well. Ozan Kabak saying 17 goals, 8 assists in all comps for Lucho, 25 GA. I think that's a great ratio for a player of his quality. And JK says Diaz played his part, us winning the league, best ball holder in the Premier League. Yeah, I definitely agree with that one. Ivan Shirokov, is that the one from Twitter?
I know
Looks
that's
like
what I
it.
asked. I
Yeah,
said,
he didn't.
is this the
Yeah, big up.
American Ivan?
Yeah, he's always tweeting about transfer news. So yeah, big up if that is yourself. Big up for your comment there. Thank you for tuning in. Kieran says hi. Big up, Kieran. I hope you're well. Salah's already dropped his name there. He's gone for Gyökeres. We'll talk about Gyökeres very, very soon. Ozan come out and said, would love to see Rio and Trey in the cup comps next season. I think they'll be slowly embedded into the first team just to get inside the mix. Because with Rio, he's already broken into the under 23, and he's been killing it as well. So I feel like next year he will be playing cup games. And, just to sound like a mystic Oz, I think the season after 2026, we'll be seeing a lot more of Rio, in my opinion. I think he'll be not a star or anything like that, but he will be in the first team forward, in my opinion. So got a very, very special young player there. So definitely one we have to kind of manage correctly and not put too much pressure on him to deliver. You know, with due time, I think he'll definitely be a top player for us in the future. Other Kabak agrees with you, says Stefan is so versatile. He definitely is. Jackson Vigo himself, he says Isak. So yeah, that's definitely a player we'll be talking about. Uh, Someone says who's pumping. Uh, Kieran Fletcher says Isak is my dream striker signing, but can't see him leaving Newcastle this summer. So great segue because that's the first player we're going to talk about. Isak. That is a dream signing, isn't it? Because in terms of what he brings to the table, what we've seen this year, he's been unplayable at times, and there's been times where, especially against Liverpool, I saw the goal earlier on today. Where I was watching compilations where he got past Van Dijk with ease and smashed it into the top bin. Like he's a player that, for me, could be a game changer for us. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's a realistic target for a
Hmm.
number of reasons. Newcastle have qualified for the Champions League, so
Hmm.
that's put them in a very good position to keep the player on board. And I think the money that they would have demanded, it's not like we're broke. We obviously we're on the verge of signing Verts for a similar fee of that kind of caliber. But maybe that was the only sort of signing that we were going to spend big on. So do you think the club is making the right choice in signing Verts? I know it's not, in terms of Isak, but do you think that's the right choice? Or do you think we should have tested the waters and really gone aggressive with trying to sign Isak from Newcastle?
Maybe people are angry with my answer.
Nah, speak your mind.
I think Verts is the right choice.
Yeah.
I think Verts the right choice because I think Verts wants to be a Liverpool player. I think that when you find players that want to not only, get a better accommodations, meaning like money and the likes for their family and everything else, that's understandable and respectable in itself. But when you have a player that wants and chooses your team over all other teams, and we're not talking about small minnows. We're talking about not possibly, the biggest club in Germany for a German-based player, German-born player, to choose Liverpool is a phenomenal statement.
It's unheard of.
And that's why it's like an immensely empowering and I won't go as far as say humbling, because I think that we stand on precedence alone too.
Yeah.
But it is very much a tradition that I'd like to see us continue to push towards going forward, in the sense of being an outlet or being a destination for these phenomenal talents, the world's most coveted talents, as opposed to always being a place where we create stars, world-class stars. I like the fact that we have a world-class star that has chosen to come to Liverpool at such a young age as well, by the way. Not someone that's 27, 28, someone that is young and has his future in front of him. So I would go with Verts.
No, totally agree. Because, because, there's always a case, like, for example, we mentioned like Thiago Alcantara. That was a player that I felt like was world class at the time, but, he was at an age where injuries were, pretty much very active in his career, and, he wasn't playing consecutive games. But this is a completely different signing for Liverpool, because we're signing a player 22 years of age. He's literally just started, like he's been playing for a number of years. So it's like he's been around for a while. But I feel like there's so many levels to unlock with Verts. And I agree with you in terms of the magnitude of this move. And I don't know how people are viewing it, because Liverpool don't go out and sign a player of that magnitude at that age. It's always a player that's, a bit more in their latter stages of career, and then we end up signing them. But this is a player that, could be a future Ballon d'Or winner. I feel like that's the kind of caliber of signing we're making. And for him to reject Bayern, which is very unheard of, is a huge statement. It just shows you the power of Liverpool as well, because fans will tell you that, oh, Liverpool aren't going to challenge for big signings or big marquee signings. Well, it looks like we're on the verge of doing it. So I agree with you. This is something that I've always voiced about with our owners, that I don't feel like they've shown ambition in this kind of, this kind of situation, but they're finally, doing it. And, obviously, touch wood, it does get completed. Because for me, that is a phenomenal signing. And I'm still seeing fans being very skeptical about the signing, which really confuses me. Because some fans are saying, oh, why are we spending so much money on this guy?
Our fans or
Our fans. So I've seen it online where some fans are saying that we're spending too much money on him. Why not spread it around, or let's get Cherky, who's a cheaper option? But this is the guy that's going to be creme de la creme, in my opinion. He's going to be that guy for years to come.
I've not seen those.
And
not seen that.
You know what? If I see it again, I'm gonna forward it to you on Twitter.
Yeah, forward that to me. I'd love to see some of those insights from some people saying that. I can understand some of the trepidation because of the PTSD type stuff, with the fact that we've gone
that might be
for some big acquisitions, and we've gotten, unfortunately, turned down, whether it was Bellingham or whether it was
I say those.
Obviously, we put the money on the table, the bid on the table, and got eventually, outbid by Chelsea,
Yeah,
and for Casado, Lavia, if you want to throw that in there, but I can understand those things, or Tuchemani as well.
yeah,
I can understand those being reasons why people will have some bits of trepidation. But when it comes down to it, a lot of the pushback has been from two main sources that I've seen, or three main sources, I guess you could say, but one and two of them are kind of one and the same. The one of the main sources has been the anti-FSG crowd out there. There's been a real push towards like they want them to get it wrong. They want another, notch in their belt to say get FSG out. So they push towards wanting to see this fail. And it's a shame because that's not, whether you like the ownership group or you don't, it doesn't matter. They're the ownership group. You want to see, if you love Liverpool, you just want to see Liverpool prosper. So whether it means that those that are in control of the levers right now, if it means that you have to trust in their decisions, then it's not necessarily an easy thing because you're not making those decisions. But all the same, you know what? I'm looking at number 20 right now, and I'm not really trying to throw the vegetables and fruits and vegetables at the ownership group at this moment. That's it. The other group, though, I would say that is often I find as being maybe those types of people are two different types of people. The rivals and neutrals because they're scared.
yeah, facts.
They're shook. They're shook ones out there, mob deep, if you know what I mean. Okay. Yeah. And the others, possibly, that you think are Reds, they're trolls.
Possibly.
They're not real. They're not Liverpool fans, really. I honestly think that some of them are not Liverpool fans. I think that they're trolls in disguise. They're rivals pretending, trying to plant the seeds of discontent and fear amongst us. If this deal works, fantastic. If it doesn't, fantastic. I'm not going to be chest-fallen or not over whether it goes through or doesn't go through. But what I am going to say is that this club is pushing towards making major deals.
Yes.
We're about to sign someone for a 9-figure deal. We've never had that done in our existence, And so many people have been pushing for us to be that club, for us to make bigger deals, to go and show quote unquote ambition. This is what ambition looks like.
This is what it is. Yeah.
And you got to call it for what it is when it's actually performed. And if that's the case, then more power to you. But then again, Chris Henry's got this. I don't want to give away too much. I'll hold off on it. But Chris Henry has
that's all right. But no, I agree because the comments I saw online, it might be trolls. I might have to look into it a bit more. But I feel like when you do content, you realize you can't please everyone. So it's like.
No.
Some fans might just have that skeptical view that, it's too much money. What if it's probably like PTSD, where what if it doesn't work out? But the thing is, this is what we've been crying out for. We've been crying out for ambition from the fan base. So from the owner, sorry. So for me, this is what I wanted. And whether it's a success or not, at least it shows me that the club are thinking about success on the pitch rather than from a business point of view, where they're doing merchandise deals and all that sort of stuff. It's about investing in the squad. And I feel like this is what we wanted. We wanted to sign an elite player, and I feel like Wirtz is that guy. Despite what rival fans will tell you, some fans, Man City fans, are telling you Cherky's better and all that sort of stuff. So don't believe the narrative. This player, for me, is one of the best players in his position, and I'm not just exaggerating. I feel like he's that good, and even at 22 years of age, for me, he's only going to get better. So look. We just have to buckle up and see, what happens. We might get this kind of announcement, with the German flag on the chair there, like we did with the Frimpong deal. And today he pretty much revealed it himself. Like, who says I
No.
want number 10? I respect players. Don't believe everything was written. So for me, that pretty much, is the writing on the wall. This player is on the verge of joining Liverpool. So I know a lot of fans have been a bit nervy about this deal. Just a bit of patience. It will happen in due course. So yeah, we'll take our time with that one. He will be joining Liverpool very, very soon. Just got a few comments here regarding Isak. Ozan comments, the only thing for me about Isak is that he's injury prone with his groin. He just underwent surgery, didn't he? Yes, he's just done I think he's had surgery. That was something that it was confirmed just before the end of the season. So that would be a concern, especially when you're spending, a huge amount of money like that. But I don't think Newcastle want to sell the player. So it's something where it might not have been a realistic option, even though, us fans would love to see it. But unfortunately, I don't see it being on the cards. Next player, which Chris Henry has said, Alvarez. He says, show me the money to Atletico Madrid, get Alvarez. 12 man, would he be your first choice if there was any slight of hope in signing him?
I know that Alvarez is on the list that we have that we're going to go over and go through, but
Yeah.
Alvarez is my top choice.
Yeah, facts. He's the top
Alvarez is
choice.
definitely my top choice. Alvarez was very close. I know Chris is saying show the money to Atletico Madrid. Look, we showed the money to Manchester City. This
Yeah.
deal was going to be made. It's just that Manchester City got greedy and they wanted to include Lucho.
Yeah.
And that's not happening. There's no way that I would put Lucho in a deal and still have to pay 50, 60, 70 million for a player. And that, so Lucho's got worth of his own, but Alvarez is an incredible talent and he's easily my top choice.
Yeah. I think for me, it was always between Isak and Alvarez, but the more I've watched Alvarez this season, I just feel like he would be the perfect striker just because of what he brings to the table. He's a great finisher in front of goal, but he's very intelligent in terms of the way he makes his moves. Saw a great free kick he scored a few weeks ago. So, that's something in his locker that, we could, utilize in our team and can play in different positions, during games. He might not be playing on a left wing, for example, but when he played for City, we've had tough encounters with him when he's played in the number 10 role and he's played out wide as well. Like, he's a very hardworking player. And I feel like he could be the game changer in our team because he has that killer instinct in front of goal. He's very, very clinical in terms of his finishing. So for me, he would be the dream signing. I love Isak as well. For me, it's between the two. Like, I'm not even gonna be like too greedy and choose who'd I prefer. Either one would be amazing, but I think Alvarez, I feel like there's a glimmer of hope to signing. I don't know how much of a solid chance we have. Only fact that I'm saying we have a glimmer of chances because I think the deal that they're signing was 65 million plus add-ons. So if we were to offer close to that sort of like 80, 90 million, maybe that's something they'd consider. They also have interest in Darwin Núñez. Maybe that could be used as part of the deal. Speaking of Núñez, I was going to come back because it's coming out asking 12th man. Would he swap Jota and Darwin for Julian Alvarez?
Who's on Kabak? Yes, he plays center back. Knows my affliction for both Darwin and for Hata. I think Atletico Madrid would jump at the opportunity for that.
They would, yeah.
Because I know Simeone definitely rates Darwin, and I think getting a player, even if he is injury prone or however you want to put it, I think he's still a baller. He's got to find his way. He's got to find his he's got to find that loving feeling or whatever the song goes, But yeah, that's something that they would definitely do. But the only thing about that, real quick, is that I spoke about this too with a friend of this show, friend of my show, also a component of my show too. He has his own show as well, but the Irishman. And I spoke about this with him because football today, with PSR rules, you're going to rarely see a transfer deal that involves a swap deal anymore, I think. It just doesn't work out for teams to swap players because that doesn't do anything towards your PSR. So rather than swap, we would have to figure out a price for both Jota and Darwin. Yeah. And then that way, because then what they can do is then they can say on their books they have a, I don't know, 75 million pound deal or a 50 million pound or whatever the number is. That's how it is, as opposed to just swapping players. And there's a lot involved in even trying to swap players. But I think that those days of football are very. It was already a rarity somewhat before.
Yeah, it wasn't that common anyway. To be fair, it's more of a FIFA thing. I think so. People just trading players on career mode. Chris says he's meant to be happy in Madrid. Yeah, I've heard different reports. Some saying he wants to leave, and some saying that his missus doesn't want to come back to England, and so you're hearing all sorts of perspectives. So who knows? But Chris also says that he believes that if you put the money up, they will sell. I hope so. I really, really hope so. Because for me, he'd be the perfect sign. I think he would complete our attack, the way he plays as well. So yeah, fingers crossed. This is the guy that we want. But if I'm being a realist, I don't think it's the one we could unfortunately get over the line. But look, I don't want to be a downer. Let's hope we put some positive energy out. Then hopefully we can try and sign a Julian Alvarez to Liverpool this summer. Ozak says we can't just buy players without offloading some players. Ozzy, that's right. I think that's why you've got the likes of Diaz, who's being strongly linked with a move away from the club. So that could be something that happens in the coming weeks. Nunes is another name that could be on the verge of leaving as well. And then that's when we'll probably hear a bit more in terms of the next profile striker that we're going to sign. So we'll see. I think there will be a lot of outgoings. Kelleher was made official today. He's gone to Brentford. I think he's gone for peanuts, to be fair. We should have got a lot more money for him. But I mean, due to his, having only 1 year remaining in his contract, it's a deal that I guess, works for both parties. I think we've pretty much mugged them off for the Carvalho and the Vandenberg deal as well. So we had to kind of balance it out in some shape or form. Just got a comment here from Kieran. He says, what do you think Alvarez has that Isak doesn't? What would you answer to that, 12th man?
I think the most notable thing that I think Alvarez has that Isak doesn't is, one, he's played in a system that's remotely, very, very remotely similar, as in Pep has played with a false nine. He doesn't, now that he has Haaland, he doesn't play with a false nine, but he has played with a false nine, so he can adjust his team to those likes. Also, why I think one thing that Alvarez has that possibly Isak doesn't have is the versatility to be utilized as a striker or even as a 10 if necessarily. I'm not saying that Isak can't play any of those roles. I'm just saying I think Alvarez is a better fit for those two positions at least. Albeit you could argue back that Isak is a player that you could play out wide. You certainly could. And I don't know. Alvarez has played out wide, but I don't know if necessarily that's one of his stronger points. But primarily the one thing that I do rate about Alvarez over Isak is that I think that Alvarez brings you a more natural false nine than Isak is. Isak to me is more of an outright number 9. I don't really say Julian Julian Alvarez, I should say, is an outright number 9. But I
He's
think
a
that
9.5. He's in between a number 9 and number 10.
yeah,
That's the way I would describe him.
okay.
So I feel like he would bring something different to our team. And the way we play as well, I think he fits naturally as well. He can drop deep when required, or he can play a bit more further up if we need to as well. So I feel like he would add the perfect balance to our attacking lineup. And I feel like he's a player that can, attack the channels if required. And I think he can do it very comfortably. I know Isak can as well, but I feel like Alvarez just has a bit more to his game. I think he's a bit more of a fox in a box as well, in my opinion. So, this is a player, there's for me, these are the two like best strikers in Europe right now. I feel like that's the reason why we're not able to get them over the line, because they are highly valued assets to their teams, and they would want to part ways with them in any shape or form. So yeah, I think ours for me will just slightly edge it in terms of fitting into our system a bit better, and can play in different roles if required. Whereas Isak is straight up number 9, can play on the left, but I don't feel like you get the best out of him if you play him on the left wing, because it's a bit more of an orthodox position. He likes to transition to the flanks in counter attacks more or less. So for me, Alvarez would just be the perfect fit in terms of how we play. So let's see what happens if Alvarez is indeed a genuine target for us this summer. Next player, 12th man, Victor
Mhm.
Osimhen. Now, a player that has definitely, hit the numbers. I know it's a Turkish league, but you can only do what's in front of you. This season, he's played 41 times, 37 goals, 8 assists. Apparently, he's got a release clause of £60 million. Wages, I think, will be around 250k per week, which isn't too crazy, in my opinion, for a player of his caliber. I would love to sign Osimhen. I think he's a top finisher in front of goal, a natural goal scorer to an extent. But not to be a downer, I feel like he's being linked with a move to Saudi, so that could be a stumbling point. Do you think Osimhen would be a good fit for us at Liverpool?
I'm not that sold on Victor.
Okay.
Um, Not that saying he's not a good player, not saying he doesn't have talent,
Yeah.
but he is explosive. He has a relentless effort in him. I'll admit that, for trying to get forward and get involved offensively. He does have an injury record. He does have an
Mm.
injury record. But I just don't know if he's a natural fit for Slot's tempo, basically,
Mm.
and for what we would want from our 9. So I would pass on. Yeah, I know this is a friend of the show. I know this is K-Max guy. He's been saying that this guy, he thought this was going to be our first acquisition, actually. So he's been really
Okay.
pushing the idea. But yeah, I don't think so. Not for me.
Yeah. Fair enough. I do feel like he's a player that would add more goal from what I've seen, especially this season. So I'm gonna go off like recent form. He has a good sort of variation of goals. He's not just a type of player that scores one type of goal. He scores tap-ins, he scores headers. So I feel like he'd give us a different dimension up top. But um, another factor could be, because he plays for Nigeria, with AFCON coming up as well, would that be a stumbling block? Because he would need to, move
Yeah,
on and play
yeah.
in January as
Halftime.
well. So that'd be two players, in our attack that will be without. So I don't know. That could be a factor in terms of maybe not pursuing him further. I think
Yeah,
talent-wise, I quite like him, um, but it looks like Saudi's been the talk of the town for quite a while now. I think that is probably going to be his destination. He's already had issues with the Napoli president, so he's definitely going to part ways. So maybe a move to Saudi is on the cards for the Nigerian striker. Um, Now, player that's been getting a bit of rumblings, I've say last 2 3 days. If you
Mhm.
believe the betting odds, is that um the odds have been slashed for 2-1. I'm not a betting man, so if I've said it incorrectly, please do correct me. So 2-1 that Gyökeres could be potentially joining Liverpool. Now he'd also been linked to a move to Atletico, so I don't know if that's got to do with the future of Alvarez. If it does, that'd be good for us because then it,
Mhm.
it gives us that invitation to place a bid for Alvarez. But in terms of his ratio, it's quite remarkable to be fair. Um, 52 appearances, 54 goals, 13 assists in all competitions. In the league, it was 33 appearances, 39 goals, and 8 assists. Now, from what I've seen of him, he's a prolific striker. If you want to describe him, proper gunman, I would say. Knows how to hit the back of the net. Exactly the striker that we need. However, I have slight reservations in terms of his suitability of playing the Premier League. Like, can he handle the physicality, the tempo of the Premier League? That is a bit of a grey area for me. I'm not sure if he does, but if you're asking me in terms of his goal scoring ability, I feel like he could definitely be a great addition to the squad. And he's available for £55 million, which in this day and age isn't a crazy amount of money.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a crazy gamble, especially if you look at the market where, we're going to speak about other players as well, but there aren't, a lot of top strikers available in my opinion. So this is someone that's a bit more established, due to his age and experience. So, maybe we could sign him this season, and worst case scenario, if he doesn't do well, he can always be regarded as a backup next season. We can try and get an Isak on Alvarez next season. So that's just me going a bit one step ahead there. But what would you say is your thoughts on Gyökeres? Do you think he's Liverpool quality, or are you not too fond of the striker?
Um, I don't have anything against the striker. I know some people's takes probably would be that we took a gamble on one of the Portuguese best in Nunez. So if you're not happy, or if that's not efficient enough or sufficient enough for you uh, for a player, then I don't know of how much of an upgrade over Nunez Victor would be. Look, he had 40 goals and he had 40 GA this season. Certainly a modern day destroyer style striker. Has a high work rate.
Yeah.
Has a similar build to like a Holland, I guess you could say, in that he's like a big guy.
He's not the
Um,
tallest though, is he? Height wise, but I think stock wise
I can
he
double
is.
check for you. Let me double check for you. I think that he is. Let me double check that.
Might just be his running stuff because I always feel like he's not the tallest when he's on the ball.
Mhm.
Could be wrong.
He's 6'2".
Oh, why? Doesn't look it.
Yeah, about to say, I don't know how tall you are, Oz, but that's tall. Oz over here is on some shack.
I'm not even that.
He's 7 feet tall over here, and Ozzy is. That's what Ozzy is.
He's a midget
Um,
to me.
I think the one thing that goes against Gyökeres is that he's 27 years old.
Mm,
That's something of a negative
okay.
because
Yeah. Age profile.
yeah. Actually, I think tomorrow's his birthday too. Actually,
Yeah, I think he turns 28 tomorrow.
he's turning 28 tomorrow, right? So the big question is, does he have the finesse to perform what he's doing? To finesse to perform the way he's performing in Portugal in the Premier League? That's a big question. I know a lot of people didn't necessarily. I'm not saying I'm not saying that he's. I'm not saying that I'm down on Nunez. I'm not, but I know people will have a heavy threshold of wondering,
Yeah.
where's the line for this player. So um, it's a good player, but I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't. He might. He's probably in my top 10.
Mm,
Maybe I don't even. I don't know. I'd have to really think about it and see if he'd be my top five. I haven't made a top five yet,
yeah,
but if
I
he
think
is, he's right around the 5, 6. He's
yeah,
on the cusp. He's not at the top of the list for me.
I
Good
think
player.
that's what the fans are probably having doubts about the players because of him being in the Portuguese league. So they don't want another situation where because Darwin Núñez came from there and was very prolific, but hasn't really, adapted to the Premier League the way we probably expected. Is that going to be the same scenario for Gyökeres? So I feel like it's a bit of that PTSD, and our Liverpool fans have it a lot, unfortunately. Um, it's an interesting one because I do feel like he's a prolific striker, but I do have reservations. I don't know if he is going to cut it in the Premier League, and I know he's played for Coventry in the Championship, so physically he should be fine. But I don't know. I'm not completely convinced. And my also reservation would be, if you look at his stats, his numbers are phenomenal. Why are we the only club that are showing strong interest? Why are there no? Why isn't there a lot trying to sign linked to him at one point? You had Arsenal that are still linked to him, but it looks like they might be pursuing another target. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's an interesting one. Look, if he was to be signed, I would be happy with the signing because I do think he's a great finisher in front of goal. Um, it just depends in terms of what else happens with the other strikers that we've mentioned. If they've moved on, then you might feel like, oh, maybe we should have gone for that striker instead. So it just depends how the transfer market pans out. But look, if he is the signing that we make, I wouldn't be
Yeah,
um
I wouldn't be against it. I
disappointed.
wouldn't be. Yeah, I wouldn't be
Yeah,
throwing my
yeah,
yeah your toys at
I
the
yeah,
doors like that. Yeah.
definitely. Just got a few comments here from Bertie. Big up Bertie says Isak all day. Yeah, I think that we would probably co-sign that as well, along with Alvarez. Isn't he on 500k a week? I think that was in reference to Osimhen. He could be. I don't know. But it looks like he's probably heading towards Saudi anyway, so they'll be able to pay that wage bill for sure. Um, and Chibuke, big up Chibuke, says Liverpool will sign Atlanta striker Matteo Rotigu. His release clause is 50 million euros. He scored 25 goals this season. He scored 10 goals with left foot, 10 goals with right foot, and 5 goals with a header. And Lewis could ask for the source. Um, was exactly a prolific goal scorer like Jota, and he's 25 years old. He's available for 50 million, which is 42 million. So that's the player we'll speak about during the show. But if that's breaking news, that's interesting. I didn't think he would be a strong target for us, but we'll talk about him in due course. Bertie says we have another Nunes. If
Mhm.
he's that age, he's got to be proven. Yeah, I understand that, but that's not really the age group that the age profile that we normally go for as well. So um, it probably if we were to sign Jokers, it's probably because of the market where we're not able to get value for money, and for 55 million for a player of his quality and with the numbers that he's producing, it is for pretty much value for money, isn't it? So that's why he'd probably be considered as an option. Bertie says same goal as the Southampton striker when in the championship, I think. And Kieran says he turned 27 today. Oh, he turned 27 today. Okay, I thought he turned 28.
I think
All right. That's,
on the app that I just looked up, it says June 4th. It's still June 3rd where I'm at, but
oh, okay.
it says June 4th and it says he's 27. So I would assume that it was
Okay.
28, but if he's 27, he's 27.
Yeah, it's potential. Yeah. Um, it's when he played for Coventry. That's fair. Um, Other comments at the top. Are you ready for the new Adidas long sleeve kits?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a few of those. That was a good thing about Adidas. You can get short sleeve or long sleeve. Nike never really had that option. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad we moved over to Adidas. Looking forward to seeing the kits being unveiled as well.
Hmm.
Chibuke says Liverpool cannot sign Gyökeres at 27 years old at 55 million. Edward would not do that. Yeah, remains to be seen. What happens with Gyökeres? Next striker, Gonçalo Ramos. Now, he's been linked with the club I think it was since last week. So in terms of his stats this season, 41 appearances, 8 club, but he's not a striker that moves me. The only good thing, well, not only good, that's a bit rude, but in terms of his profile, he's 23 years of age. So some people have quoted this as a money ball signing in terms of his age and,
Hmm.
the stats in terms of what he's produced over the years because he was quite prolific at Benfica. Hasn't really found his stride at PSG, but that might also be because of the players, ahead of him who have been in scintillating form this season. So maybe he could be an option if we're unable to sign a top elite striker like an Isak or an Alvarez. So I don't think he's in that bracket. I think he's probably a bracket below those type of players. I don't think he's within that kind of remit. What do you make of Gonçalo Ramos? Would that be a player that you think the club should consider signing if he became available?
I get PSG is in the it crowd now, like as in they're the hot commodity. They've done it right by putting together rather than trying to go the Galacticos route. They've put together some very good young talent that definitely pushes for the collective as opposed to for the individual goals. Um, I don't know. It depends on whether you're going for a project player or if you're going for an actual proven
Mm.
player. I saw someone you brought up he's got to be proven. For instance, one of the comments just said it's very difficult. There's not many. You can say Alvarez is one of the only
Yeah,
players outside of Isak probably because Isak actually does still play in the Prem, but
yeah.
other than that, there's not many of these choices that we're going to be bringing up play or have been proven in the Prem.
Mm.
So there's not going to be very many Prem proven. And when
No,
you're
that's
at that
going to be
age, you're probably more of a project than you are you know, bona fide world class talent that's Prem proven and all those different, buzzwords that has to be thrown out there.
yeah. He's an interesting player. 'Cause I remember watching for Benfica. 'Cause I think when Nunes left, he ended up sort of taking the mantle and became the prolific striker there. So I know he's got
Mhm.
ability in front of goal. He is a good finisher. I just don't know if he's because if he was to come in, he'd be first choice, isn't it? So I don't know if he's quite at that level to lead the line for Liverpool on a more consistent basis. If he was one of two options. Like if we had an Isak and he was like the second choice striker, then I wouldn't have too many reservations of that. But for him to be the main number nine, I'm not entirely won over with Ramos. And then says that this is the one, so and then has a different opinion there. Chibuke says another option is to sell Nunes and sign Cherki and play Verts as a false nine and Jota as a striker and Diaz and Gakpo from the wing and Salah and Bendo as a backup. Um, Cherki and Verts in the same team. That's something dreams are made of, I guess. So I don't know if that's going to be a reality, but we'll see. Kieran says no, thank you to Ramos. Chibuke says Liverpool cannot sign Ramos. His progressive carries is poor. There's no way Liverpool sign a striker with very low progressive carries. And then say ruining the vibes. Apologies. uh, if he's your guy. Look, if he was to sign, I wouldn't be dismissive of the player. Of course, whoever joins Liverpool will always get our full-on support. We're just doing an analysis of the different options because he's being compared to the likes of Isak and Alvarez. So, the structure is a little bit higher in terms of the ratings, in terms of where we'd want to see him. But look, I do think he's a good player. I just don't know if I would have a lot of confidence in him being our number nine. That's the only thing. Um, and then Nenan says progressive carry is a good argument. Not gonna lie, yeah. The way we play, the striker does have to be a good ball carrier to an extent, especially through counter attacks and all that sort of stuff. So it is a very important stat for us, and that's probably why we're not going to sign a target man because that's not the real way of how we play as a collective. So hopefully I haven't ruined your vibes too much, but it is an open discussion. So thank you for your comment there. On to the next striker.
Mm-hmm.
Hugo TK. Now, this is the one that has been a topic of conversation for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of his stats, 48 appearances, 22 goals, 12 assists. I like the player, if I'm being brutally
Mm-hmm.
honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Stylistically reminds me of an Isak in terms of the way he plays. Very tall, similar build, and great first touch, great sort of half turn, great dribbling ability. Not the most sort of proficient goal scorer, in my opinion. I think that's an area that he's still a bit raw. I don't think he's a kill in the box as of yet, but he has a very good all round game. He can do a bit of everything: drop deep, hold the ball. He's very good on with flicks, with 1-2s, and he can attack the channel very well, especially on that left hand side. So for me, one of his key strengths is actually being a good ball carrier. He's a very good dribbler and ball carrier of the ball. You mentioned this term earlier on, 12 man. I would regard him as a project striker. I don't think he's the finished article. Uh, but if I was to choose a project striker, I think Ekitike would be number one on my list. Because I feel like he's very close to hitting a new level or being at that level where he's probably earmarked as one of Europe's top strikers. I think he's not too far off, in my opinion. But the stumbling point with regards to Ekitike is the price because Frankfurt are demanding 84 million pounds, which is 100 million euros, which I think might put Liverpool off in terms of that price bracket. I also believe that PSG, I don't know if this is 100% true, so please don't quote me on this, but I think PSG have a clause where they receive a percentage of the next transfer fee, because that was the team that the Frankfurt bought him from. So that might play a part in terms of why they've raised the stakes of his valuation. At the minute, if you believe the rumors, Chelsea look like they're the front runners to sign Hugo Ekitike, which is a little bit annoying because they've also just signed Delap as well last week. So Ekitike, is he the guy for you, or do you think we will look elsewhere?
I mean, there's a lot of buzz behind his name. I know that.
Mm,
I will go as far as to say that him being a 80 million, 100 million, I think that's what the number they're looking to get is astronomically outrageous. Okay. I know that the market is definitely skewed right now at this moment. They've gotten past the pandemic era where they were trying to, they were adjusting for the numbers, but now it seemed like it's gone the complete opposite direction from that era. And you're now looking at prices for players that are not worth anywhere near the number that they're asking for, in my humble opinion. If you can get it while the getting's good, I guess, But realistically, no, I don't think that I would. I don't see him as 100 million. I don't see him as 100 million. You
no.
know, euro or pound. I don't know which one they're doing, but they're doing. I don't see him as that. Now, do I see him as 55, 60, something like that?
Yeah.
Now we're talking.
Yeah. I think
But
that's a true valuation. 50, 60 million. That would have been a fair price because he's had a good season. I feel like he does have the potential to, hit that next level. But I have to agree, the price is outrageous. 84 million pounds to 100 million, whatever, the currency is. That's too much. That's far too much money. That's the money you would spend on an Alvarez and an Isak because you know what you're going to get out of that. So for me, he's not quite at that level. He can be possibly in the future, but at this stage, I don't think he is. So let's see what happens at Kitike. I do really like the player, but Chelsea seem to have an open checkbook nowadays, so it might be where they end up signing him instead. But I don't even know if that's a good fit, if I'm being brutally honest with you. From a player point of view, and I'm not just being biased because we're Liverpool fans, I think he would suit us better than a Chelsea team just because of the way we play. I feel like we'll be tailor made for him. So
do you really think that they're going to get? I mean,
I don't
that
know.
would mean that they're going to give up on Jackson, I guess.
Yeah, could be fair choice, wouldn't he? So yeah, I don't see him
I mean, you
change
don't
formation.
spend that kind of money. You don't spend that kind of money. Not to cut you off, I was going to say you don't spend that kind of
Yeah,
money on a striker, and then have him sit the bench.
yeah, that's true.
So,
Especially Delap as well.
and
Delap
then
is
Nicholas Jackson had one of the best seasons of his Chelsea career too.
so
So
it'll be interesting. I don't know if it's because it can sometimes because it's been quite well known that Liverpool have had a strong interest in the player. Maybe this is just paper talk. I'm not too sure. Like the agent trying to push Liverpool to really you know strengthen their stance and place a concrete deal. Who knows? Because you have to. It is a point. They've just signed Delap. Delap was signed pretty much last week. They activated the release clause, and they've got Jackson. Three strikers of that magnitude. It's very bizarre for Chelsea to have that many strikers, and they don't play with two strikers. They play one striker. So let's see. But I think Ekitike would be my first choice if we were going towards that project player route. That would be the guy that I would want us to sign. Got a few comments here from Kieran. He says, I like Ekitike. He's very impressive on the ball, great dribbler and hard to get the ball off. I totally agree with that one. And then says, Ramos ain't that good, but he has more fundamentals than Nunes, and his pace is ridiculous. His price is realistic. Sorry. Um Kieran says, really stepped up for Frankfurt when Mamouche left and became the star player. That's something I was intrigued to see as well because I know they formed a great partnership and we were already linked with Ekitike around that part of the season anyway. So I was always intrigued to see how he would respond because your strike partner's gone. Do you step up to the plate or do you go in the shadows? And I think he really stepped up. He definitely led the line very well. So for me, that shows, there's a player there that he's ready to, take accountability for his team when he's the main man. So, good signs there for a future top striker, in my opinion. Tribuca says Frankfurt are tough negotiators and 84 million for a player that scored 11 open play goals, sorry, and 4 penalties is not a good deal. 11 open goals, no way Liverpool will not make that transfer. He's 45 million. Fair enough. I feel the price. I totally agree. The price is not right. It's not realistic. But if we were to negotiate down to like 60, 50, then I think that would be a fair assessment there. And then it says it's because of crazy prices that I'm looking at Ramos. It's not a crazy shot because the prices, roaming around are quite crazy. The next one I'm going to mention, his price is even, higher than Ekitike. So the striker market is a bit crazy right now. Mazzy, big up Mazzy says, guys, when LFC complete the record signing on Verts, where does he play? Who drops out, Mac or Sabozlai, or can all of them play with Groundberg with four in midfield? How do you envision the new lineup being with Verts in the team next season?
guys, when Liverpool, okay, so Maka, Dom, Grav, and Verts. I see all of them playing.
Yeah,
Sounds weird. You're going to say, how's that so? Because I see it as a possible that you have a 4-2-4 in essence,
yeah,
and you can play with a shadow striker, maybe a false nine, or do something where you have two tens in essence, with the two wingers as well. You have a lot of overlaps from your fullbacks. You have plenty of offensive output. You'll then have a midfield where you could possibly see in this. I would love to see this too. Is you could possibly see a midfield where Grav and Dom are going to be the two, and you can possibly do Mac and Verts up front as your tens.
okay,
Or maybe you do stick with having Grav and Mac as your pivots, and then you still go with Dom as your 10, as your workhorse 10, and have Verts being a false nine that floats back from being a
yeah.
false 9 and 10. But that's just me. I like the tactical portions of the game and the likes. So that's just me thinking outside the box.
I think the beauty of having vets in our team, there's a lot of sort of flexibility in terms of how we set up. We're not going to have one static formation. It's going to be different formations, not even just based on opposition. It'll be during games as well. We might switch it up here and there. So for me, Verts gives me Coutinho vibes. So I can definitely see Verts playing on the left on occasions, but can also play in that number 10. False 9 can be an option as well. I think with Szoboszlai is definitely a player that I feel like has already been dismissed as that, oh, he's not going to be in the lineup anymore. I actually feel like with Szoboszlai, he still has a part to play. He can still play that number 10 role in certain games. I actually think he can even play on the left because that's where he played for Red Bull Leipzig. So playing on that left wing position and having Verts in that more number 10 role could work, and they can both interchange during the game as well. And
Mhm.
Szoboszlai could even play in a deeper role if necessary. So just because we've added verts to our squad doesn't mean one player completely out cold. There's a lot of rotation involved, and I feel like depending on the opposition, we'll have different shapes and different formations. And with Frimpong on the wing, playing right back, and hopefully touch with Kirkes as well, you've got two fullbacks providing the width, and then you've got all these collective of creative and you know players that can shoot from distance. We're gonna have a different type of attack next season. So however it sets up is definitely going to work, in my opinion. So I feel like it's a very exciting prospect for us Liverpool fans next season. Chibuke says negotiate Iketika at 60 million is too much. I have to disagree. I think 60 million is not the bang on right price, but I think if you look at the market into the how transfers are being executed right now, 60 million for a striker is pretty much the going rate, I would say, in my opinion. Um, Kieran says the price is too high. Agree. I'll put 50 mil price tag. So yeah, that's what I've said as well. Kieran says you have to take his age and potential into account when negotiating a price. 60 mil is a fair price. Remember, football isn't all about stats. Yeah, I have to agree. There's a player that's definitely got a lot of potential there. So you know, I do think he's very close to meet that level very very soon. Ozan Kabak says, and I fully trust in Slot's vision to make it work. He's a tactical genius. He is. He's shown that. He's shown that now it's this season gone. So I'm expecting more from the tactician next season. Abdul, big up Abdul says, hi, Ozzy, 12 and chat. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to you. This is how you're doing. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Big up yourself, Abdul. Thank you for your comment and thank you for tuning in. Next player. Another player that's been mentioned online is Benjamin Sesko. Now, he's a player that definitely splits the fan base, in my opinion, and I'll choose to get your take on him as well. So, 45 appearances, 21 goals, 6 assists. Now, whenever I've seen him play live, I've not been hugely impressed. Maybe I give him bad luck vibes. I don't know, but he doesn't seem to deliver when I watch him play. I might go as far as to say that he's a little bit overrated. From what I've seen, he's very raw in his finishing. And that would be my concern if he was the number 9 signing for us. In comparison to Ekitike, who also said is, not the most proficient in front of goal. But I think if you compare the two strikers, I think Ekitike slightly better, and I think he has a better all-round game. Um, the crazy thing about Sesko that I think definitely rules us out is his price tag. It's 92 million. So not euros, 92 million to sign Sesko. Now, Arsenal seem to be strongly linked to the players, so it remains to be seen if they pay that kind of money. Um, what's your take on Sesko? Do you rate him, or do you think he's not the type of striker that we should be going for this summer?
Again, I rate the Bundesliga, and I rate uh, I rate the league that he plays in more so I do um, than I do or I rate RB Leipzig a little bit more than I rate some of the teams in Portuguese league. But again, it's not the Premier League. I'll tell you that much. So it's different style, different approach to the game. Um, I'm not completely sold on this player either. However, I wouldn't go for the price tag that he's probably going to be asking for. I don't know if I would see myself pushing for uh, pushing for his signature per se.
Yeah.
Um, Tall, mobile, rapid with his speed.
Yeah.
Um, I just don't with Arsenal being a huge contender for him right now at this moment, and him entertaining that. Maybe even a Manchester United possibly going for him as well.
Mm.
Um, I rather steer clear. Uh, I steer clear.
I agree. I think we should stay clear. I don't. He doesn't. He doesn't excite me as a player. I feel like he's still quite raw. He doesn't move me in terms of the way he plays, and I don't think he's quite ready for that step up as of yet. He's quite young. I think he's 22 years of age, so he's still quite young. So he still has time to do it. But for me, he's not quite ready for Liverpool. Abdul says Sesko is comparable to Darwin Núñez, representing a promising player with significant potential for growth and development. He is an average striker. Kieran says Sesko is a good player, playing in a struggling Leipzig side, but he certainly isn't the finished article, or should I say finished product. And the price tag attached is to him is too much. He has room to improve. Um, Abdul says identifying a striker who can immediately contribute significant goals is challenging. Finding strikers in the transfer market was considerably easier during the 1990s, 2000, 2010s. Yeah, possibly. There's a lot more strikers in those days, where you had elite strikers in every league. Now it's not the same. You don't have that same crop of strikers, unfortunately. So very little to choose from. But hopefully Liverpool can get it right and find a prolific striker. Oh, what's happened there?
Mhm.
Got a bit too ahead. Is his teammate Lois Openda now the Belgium striker? Of course, Sesko's teammate. He's played 45 times this season, 13 goals, 11 assists. The goal return isn't great, to be honest with you. That's just over 1 in 3. From what I've seen of him, he's got good movement around the box. He scores a lot of tap-ins. Me personally, I would have concerns with him in regards to playing in the Premier League. I don't think he'll be as impactful. Maybe the physicality would be too much for him in the league. What's your take on Lois Openda?
He's certainly not a striker in my mind.
Mm.
More like a, and this is loosely putting it. I'm not saying he's Salah, okay, but I would say he's certainly a speed merchant with some great. He has great composure. Speed merchant. Um, I'd say it's similar like Salah being. I could see him trying to play, or maybe like a Bueno style player. I wouldn't go as far as to say Gordon, but like someone that utilizes his pace as being a key attribute for him. Um, do I have? Do I? He's another project player though to try to transition and create into that number nine. If he were to try to put him as a number nine for our team, but I just don't see him as a number nine personally.
No, uh, yeah, I don't
Not in
think
the Premier
so.
League, at least. Not in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think in terms of what he brings to the table, you know, playing at Liverpool, it's a different ball game. So for him to be our number nine, I don't see him being prolific, and that would be my concern as well. He's not a prolific striker. He can play in a number 10, can play out wide as well, but I don't want a player that's just going to be a makeshift in certain position. I want the the natural number 9 or the killer in the box. That's the type of player that I want. So, let's see what we can do. But I don't think Openda is the guy. João Pedro, so he's been linked with the club
Mhm.
for quite some time. In terms of his stats, 30 appearances, 10 goals, 7 assists. I like the play in terms of what I see. Obviously, the numbers aren't very high as well, 1 in 3 again. Uh, but I think there's a player that has potential to grow. Uh, but but having said that, I don't think he's quite ready to lead the line for a team like Liverpool. And Brighton wants 70 million for him as well, which for me is another inflated price there. What do you make of João Pedro?
Yeah, João Pedro, very, very good player. Definitely someone that's done some work for the reason why Brighton are going to be going to Europe again. Versatile, technical, can be sometimes unpredictable in the final third. I think he's still very raw with his talent. He's still got measures to go, or lines and measures to get further developed into being a perennial player. But I think you could definitely say he's Premier League tested. False nine, he could be a wide threat. Again, good player. I don't think that he doesn't get above. He's not in my top three.
No,
I know Drifty, a good friend of mine, Drifty loves João Pedro. He's been campaigning for us to get João Pedro from, I think, the beginning of this year. But I just don't see it. I don't see it. Brighton would make us pay a pretty penny for him. And they even probably put a little Premier League tax on it. And I think if you're going to go and pay that kind of money, you probably go and pay for your Alvarez's or your Isaks or something along those lines.
No,
I'm not saying it's going to be 150 million, but I'm just saying you tend to step up and go for the bigger fish.
No, I agree. He's definitely a player with promise, but I'm not sure if he's ready for that step up quite yet, in my opinion. Raji Painting says, boys with your football knowledge, which striker signed for LFC? I think we both said Alvarez, isn't it? That would be our dream striker, if that's the striker we could sign, I would say. Kieran says, I like João Pedro for what he brings on the ball. Technical player with good movement, but not the player I would be looking at starting for the Premier League champions. Yeah, that's why I don't feel like he's ready for that transition yet. Abdul says, João Pedro is a key forward, contributing significantly to both development and project number 9. We require a minimum of 25 goals per season from this position from a new striker. I don't know if João Pedro is that guy to be scoring 25 goals per season. I like him. I do feel like there's talent there, but I don't know if he's at that level yet. Because right now we're the champions, so we've got to try and get someone that's going to take us to that new level as well. Jonathan David, now a player that definitely splits opinions. In terms of numbers, 49 appearances, 25 goals, 12 assists. So the numbers aren't too shabby if you're looking at it from a data point of view. Also available on a free transfer. Unpopular opinion, but if Liverpool weren't able to acquire a good quality striker, maybe we could get him as a stopgap for a season or two, and then go for another year where we sign Isak or Alvarez next summer. Not my first choice, of course, but I'm just trying to come up with different scenarios because I feel like Kieran has just mentioned it in the comments as well, and he was quite spot on. The list is getting worse and worse as we're going through it together. And you can tell the market is not as strong as it is. And I'm not going to present, top strikers just for the sake of it. These are strikers that will be available in the market that will be a bit more attainable. So what would you make of this signing? Is it something on the books or is this a no for you?
As a U.S. men's national team supporter, I would have to say, no, just joking. Because this is a Team Canada player. They've slowly but surely ascended to being perennial powers in our conference. But I would say that, yeah, Jonathan David is a talented player. I think his contract situation obviously makes him a high value deal or high value player. Will he transition from the French league to the Prem? It's a big question. But he is a consistent scorer. He's intelligent. He does very intelligent off the ball runs. I just don't know. He's not the choice that I would invest in. Put it that way.
I think he'd be a desperation sort of choice if we're not able to acquire someone. And with him being a free transfer, it's it's a gamble where the risk might be worth taking if we're not able to acquire someone of top quality. But I think Kieran's just mentioned that for so the current rumor is that they are in talks. So it looks like Jonathan David could be heading over to the Italian champions, which is a good move for him, to be fair. Definitely feel like he deserves to move up the ladder. He has been very consistent for Lille over the years, so it'll be interesting to see how he does there. I thought he might have been a smart signing for Liverpool, where maybe we could have used the finances for other positions in the team. But let's see. I think probably going to head towards Napoli, to be fair. Abdul says, available on a free transfer, potential risk factor, pulling Finn, Straws, and Lewis, picking striker, possessive project and development expertise. And Chibuke says, I will take Jonathan David all day. His movement, progressive carries, and the way we play, we just need a technical striker that is good with the ball. Kieran said he hasn't seen much of David at all. He scored a goal against us, so that's one appearance right there. Jonathan David, born in USA and plays for Canada. That is correct.
Yeah, that's even worse. That makes it even worse now. That makes it even worse. That means he betrayed his red, white, and blue. That maple leaf.
No, he's not on board. As it says, we are shopping at Poundland and Dollar State in strikers. Yeah, it looks like, unfortunately, as we go down the list. So let's move on to the next striker, Ollie Watkins. Now, this is one that's not going to, spark any applause or anything like that. 29 years of age, so of course, not the age profile that we would normally go for. In terms of his stats, 54 appearances, 17 goals, 14 assists. He was a target for Arsenal. Arsenal were quite close to signing him in January, but I think they weren't able to find an adequate replacement. Also, they sold John Duran in January, so that was something that wasn't going to happen with them selling two strikers. But my question to you, Stefan, if we're not able to get one of our primary targets that we mentioned probably at the top of the show, and we needed to sign a solid, experienced striker who's Premier League proven to come in for a sort of short-term basis rather than that person being a long-term option. Would that be an option that you think the club should consider?
Ollie Watkins. Movement, got pressing, is a good finisher.
Kieran's not happy.
Yeah, it's difficult to, you could make an argument that he is next to, I'm not saying in front of, but next to Harry Kane. He is possibly the most complete English forward. But yeah, Ollie Watkins, how old is Ollie right now?
He's 29.
29. Yeah, that ship, that train, however you want to say it, I think is already left the station.
Yeah. No, I agree. I just thought maybe that's the route we go with in terms of signing an experienced striker, just because the market isn't, it's not hugely blessed, unfortunately. Abdul says Ollie Watkins, a 29-year-old homegrown player, Premier League experience, does not align with our established striker profile, modern standards. That is true as well. Spider LFC, big up yourself, Spider LFC says, for people saying play Diaz as a false nine, he's been playing there all season. Gakpo has been playing out left. Diaz hasn't got his GA game down yet, but rather than risking it, we can recover 85 million now. Uh, and Raji Bengton says, uh, boys, do you rate Rafael Leao? And would you guys give Federico Chiesa another season because at his best he can cause disruption? We briefly mentioned that earlier on. Would you go for Rafael Leao?
I'd rather keep Chiesa than go for Leao.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
If that
I
answers your question, Raji.
I'd be selfish and say both. To
Say
be
both,
fair,
I'm sure.
obviously Oli Watkins hides in games and inconsistent. Leo is massively overrated and inconsistent. Pass on him. He is inconsistent. I will say that, but
He
when I've
also
seen
got
him on
shut
his
down against us, by the way. Trent, was it Trent that won against him, I think?
yeah,
Wasn't it? Trent, for all those that say that Trent can't play defense,
yeah.
tell me what Leao did against Trent. He got shut
This is a
down.
rude comparison. The Portuguese Rashford, I wouldn't go that far, honestly. Chibuki says we can't sell Diaz, a player who gave us 17 goals and 8 assists in 50 games. How many wingers in Europe has that number? I don't think we're selling him based on his performance. It's more of a contractual thing where, um, as Top mentioned earlier on, he's at this age
Yeah.
where no, he can probably earn a big contract elsewhere, and that is how it is. Unfortunately, in this day and age where football careers aren't very long, so they have to think about the long term rather than just the moment. So that's probably the decision why he wants
CBB.
to leave Liverpool.
I was gonna say CBB. Rewind the video a little bit, or when you get a
Yeah,
chance, watch this whole one now. But when you get a chance, rewind to the
yeah,
beginning, and you'll hear my defense, my wholehearted defense of Lucho and the appreciation I think he's deserving of.
yeah. 100% agree. Abdul says if Oli was good, people would have bought him at 24. Yeah. Liverpool offered Diaz a contract. Well, if that happens, I would be very pleased with that. But based on what we're hearing, I'm not sure if that is on the cards. But only time will tell. Now we're going to stick to the theme of Premier League proven strikers, and it's Jean-Philippe Mateta. Now, this striker, 46 appearances, 17 goals, 4 assists, unplayable on his day. So he's another experienced option in terms of the Premier League. Um, I personally don't think he's the right fit for us. I don't want to be rude, but it kind of gives me Benteke 2.0 vibes. I don't want that type of striker in our team.
Why are you gonna
Uh,
bring us back to that?
I know, sorry, I had to do it. With the Palace connection as well, it makes sense. So, is this a realistic option, or are we clutching right now?
No. If you think if I'm going and getting a player off of Crystal Palace, I would go get Eze.
Yeah, Eze is a baller. Eze is a baller.
But there's no way I'm going to get Crystal Palace's striker.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know he's been mentioned quite a lot online, but no, not for me. I'd find that quite underwhelming if we were to sign Mateta. Um, Other than what's going on in the striker market, striker market is not as blessed as it seems, unfortunately. Kieran's in tears right now, and Spider LFC says if Barca offer 85 million, he's gone. He cuts in 2 months, doesn't suit a slot system, and will hinders verts more in transitions. I slightly disagree in terms of the assessment of how he plays. I think that's more of a tactical thing for him to cut inside because obviously he's right-footed. But with us having Kirkes in our team, hopefully, that would benefit us even more to have Diaz cutting in. That's the whole purpose of having natural width of a fullback going on those overlapping runs for your forward to come inside. So it's more of a tactical approach because for Colombia, he does play in different ways. So it just depends what system he's playing in. But I like Diaz, to be fair. I wouldn't mind him staying, but it looks like he could be gone. Maddie said, guys, if Harry Kane becomes available, would you take him on a 2-year contract? I've got him on the list, so we'll talk about him later on the show. That was kind of like my wild card, but we'll talk about it later on. Kieran says, I will say though that if Arsenal had Mateta this season, it, he would have made a difference. He would have, like they needed that sort of physical
Not the
presence
guy.
up top.
Like a shout.
Yeah, I
Good
think I
shout.
have to agree with that because they didn't really have a focal point up top, and I think that's what they lacked in the end. So, he might not be, easy on the eye, or it might not be the player that we think is one of the best in the league, but he's
Mhm.
effective in what he does. So it depends on the team and the way Arsenal were playing last year. Spicy Stoke City, the way they were doing set pieces and all that sort of stuff. Mateta would have been perfect in the end of
Mhm.
those set pieces. So he will actually fit them very, very well. Spider LFC says takes 37% of those numbers off David when relating to a Premier League, but not a bad shot if waiting for Isak or Alvarez. Yeah, that's what I thought. David would have been all right, but we still haven't paid leads for Rafinha. Well, not today.
I wouldn't
That's
be
the thing.
surprised.
And I wouldn't be surprised either. Chibik said, I think Liverpool buy either Cherky or Eze as a number 10 and play Verts in a false line or left wing. Liverpool might be interested in Cherky for. Well, the rumor is that Slots, cut his short holidays short in order to meet Ryan Cherky in south of
Mhm.
France. Whether there's any truth to it, I think we'll find out very soon. But I'm a big admirer of Cherky. I would love to see Cherky in the team. In a world, you can actually have both players, Verts and Cherky, in the same team, but I don't know if that's going to happen. It looks like, unfortunately, Cherky could be on the verge of joining City. That's the indication that I'm getting, but we'll soon find out, I guess. Uh, Abdul says, "Where's Barca getting all this money from? They're selling their souls for cash and assets." It seems, yeah, that's the way they make their money, selling their souls and all that sort of stuff. Chibuki says, "Getting Turkey will be a way of planning life after Salah." I've been saying this for weeks and months. I feel like Liverpool need to future-proof centre back position in terms of Van Dijk's long-term successor, as well as Salah. And I think Turkey would have been a good, not replacement, but a good player to succeed Salah whenever he decides to leave. I feel like, he has that kind of ability about him. Not as prolific as Salah, but makes up for it in his creativity. I feel like that would have been a good player to have in the team. Um, Spiralist says interest in Cherky disappeared 2 weeks ago. Still prefer Verts. We won't buy both. Stock must not have liked what he met. Maybe because I think the news that came out today, I don't think that was like recent news that he went to meet him. Maybe this was something that happened a few weeks ago. I think Verts was an opportunistic signing. It came up, so that's what they've gone ahead with. I think Ryan Cherky would have probably been one of our main targets before the season concluded. So let's see. We'll get the clearer picture and see where Cherky ends up. Uh, Other clubs are short on cash. How do you get rid of some of players? We'll get rid of some players. I think there's a lot of players in our team that are generating interest. In terms of how much we'll get, remains to be seen. But you know, Kelleher, he was always destined to leave. He's gone today. I think there'll be a few more others that will be heading towards the exit door as well. Kieran says, yeah, it looks like Cherky and Reinders are going to City. A little bit annoyed about that. I really like Reinders, quality player. So yeah, City mean business. They're trying to strengthen as much as they can. Um, Trubisky said, since 2 weeks ago, we've been talking about Verts, which is imminent, and after Slot took a flight to France to talk with Turkey. There's truth in this. We are interested. I think we are interested, but I don't think it's going to be a done deal now. I think he's going to head to City, in my opinion. Kieran says Slot met Turkey before the Verts still blew up. Yep, that's what I've heard as well. If Vert signs, but he needs to prove himself at Liverpool. Well, every player needs to prove himself when they join a new team, of course, but it's a safe bet that I think he will do well, to say the least, because of his ability. I don't think we'll be waiting too long to see the best of Florian Wirtz. Spider FC says Paul Joyce already said that Slot flew there right before we were serious about Wirtz. The instant Wirtz said yes, we dropped all other options. That's what I'm going by as well, because Um, I think Cherky was always the guy that we thought we were going to sign. Verts, for me, I never even mentioned Verts in my show because I just felt like that was a pipeline dream. So that must have been the same stance from the club where they realized, oh, do you know what? We can actually sign the player. So, we've gone on and looks like we're going to sign a top quality player. Chibik says, take this from me. Liverpool may not sign a striker. They will use Verts as a nine. I'm not completely happy with that. I don't want to see Verts as a number nine. False nine in certain games is fine. I still feel like we need to address that position and sign a prolific number nine. Um, let's move on to the next player. It gets worse a little bit. Johan Wissa now, the Brentford striker, 39 appearances, 20 goals, 5 assists. Another experienced option, so I'm giving you guys variation on the show. Uh, he had a great season for Brentford, and to be fair, he's done well taking over Ivan Tony's place in the team, and he's been, one of their top scorers in the past season or so. However, I don't see Brentford selling both Wissa and Mbeumo in the same window. Mbeumo looks like he's set to join Manchester United, which I'll be honest with you, is a terrible move for the player, for the worst team to be joining, but not because they're our rival. I think you know, they're all over the place, and stylistically, I don't even think he fits the way they play. But that's a debate for a Man United channel. But in terms of Wissa, just a name out there, is that an option, or are we going a bit too ahead of ourselves in terms of these experienced Premier League strikers?
Low key, he's a baller.
He is.
I had him on my fantasy football team. He actually did produce for me on that team, especially for the price that I got him for. He's quick. He's surprisingly strong. Positionally, he's versatile. Yes, he's a smart second striker's profile, not a pure nine. That's about all I can say for Visa. He is not a viable option for us to hitch our complete investment in going forward for a nine. So, great year, good player, but just not Liverpool, not for Liverpool.
Yeah, no, I definitely co-signed that. Just got a comment here from Kamal. Big up Kamal. Says, what about Rittigu? That's the Italian striker. We'll talk about him very shortly as well. Spider LFC says Ramos is a good shot at PSG. Reminds me of Suarez. Also, Akiluche, that guy is a baller. If you haven't seen him 12 man, check out some compilation. He's a very talented player. Fofana, a good shout. So Akiluche plays for Monaco. So he's a left-footed player that plays on the right side, can play the number 10. Very skillful. He looks like he's going to be the next one. Don't be surprised if he's linked to PSG, because that's the kind of crop of players that they're trying to acquire now. So he's the next young prospect that I think will be making waves in Liga. As it says, that's David Coote, the delivery guy. I don't trust him as a delivery driver.
Yeah. He saw that on the show, on my show earlier, I think.
Yeah.
David Coote is now delivering parcels now.
Yeah, he's a delivery guy. I wouldn't trust him either, to be fair. Wissa is a left winger, that at number 9. He's been playing both. I think when Tony was there, he's more as a winger, but since he's departed, Wissa and Mbeumo have been playing a bit more central.
Yeah,
So
he plays makeshift.
mixes, yeah, exactly. Asback Bigger, he says, guys, with Liverpool about to break the British record and sign Verts, do we seriously need a striker, or can Salah and Verts carry the team to dominate English and European football? I think Salah as an option up top isn't a crazy idea, but I would still like us to sign a prolific striker because I feel like that would be too much chopping and changing. Let the players play in their natural positions, and I think that would be the right way to have a good balance in our team. So, if these are the options, then yeah, we might have to stick with what we have. But I do feel like Liverpool should go and try and sign an established player or a project striker, if that is the case. Kieran says, Wissa isn't the type of striker we should be looking at. I want a world-class number 9 that guarantees goals. I agree. I just thought I'd present a experienced Premier League option. Because yeah, that might be a criteria for some fans, so that's why I thought I'd mention it. Chibika said if Diaz leaves, Fofana of Lyon will replace him. I do like Malik Fofana. He does look like a good player. Whether he's ready-made to be a Diaz replacement is another debate. I think he would come in as more of an understudy for Gakpo rather than overtaking him and playing that in the first team, in my opinion. But let's see. Uh, Spider says Diaz does deserve our admiration, but Liverpool won't say no to 85 million, and Diaz won't say no to Barca. Yeah, his dad's been twerking for Barca for a couple of years now, so wouldn't be a surprise. Mateta is Benteke in this guy that I mentioned it earlier on. I had to bring that up, unfortunately. And he said, "How you just said that too?" Yeah, I had to bring it up. Apologies. On to the next player. Bit more of a bigger name now. We've gone outside of the UK. Lautaro Martinez. Now, for me, I've always rated Martin. I think the top player that I've really admired over the years. This season, 49 appearances, 22 goals, 7 assists. In terms of into the Premier League, I would have slight concerns just because he's 27 years old right now.
Mhm.
We've seen strikers over the years come from foreign leagues at that age, and they've not really adjusted to the quickness and the physicality of the Premier League because they've not
Mhm.
been used to playing that way over their course of their career. Uh, do you think Lautaro Martin would be a viable option for Liverpool to sign, or do you think he's most likely a player that remains in Serie A, or possibly maybe even makes a move to La Liga in the future?
This one is he's one of the players in my top 5.
Mm,
Um, I think Toro is a absolute talent, top-notch player. Um, I think most notably for him, uh, he is someone that really does bring versatility to the pitch because he has that Argentinian flair about him, world class finisher, lethal from anywhere on the pitch. Look, he's won everything in Italy. And let's not get it twisted. Italy is not a bad league. Okay.
no, it's not.
There's some definitely good teams in it. And he's a big part of why Inter is the team they are. Um, the price tag versus output, it might be a little different story.
Mm,
Um, he'd be looking for probably a Salah style, type wage.
yeah.
That's another different story.
Mm,
So, like I said, talent wise alone, definitely top 5. Realistically fitting for what we want for our club, what we want for what our needs are for our financial terms, that would be a different story.
yeah. I think that's going to be the defining moment there where, you know, he ticks all the boxes, but unfortunately to get him on board to join Liverpool is another question. Financially, I think also a lot of players that play in Serie A or of course live in Italy, the lifestyle switches are they might not be willing to move over to a colder climate like England. So
Agreed,
they might be
agreed.
setting their
Yeah.
ways in terms of where they are. So yeah,
It
talent
helps
wise,
with Maka here though. Maka and having players,
yeah,
would make him feel at home. That's the difference. But agreed. It's tough to get Italian players to move to England. It's tough to
yeah,
get sometimes players that are playing in Italy
yeah,
to move to just simply because of the lifestyle is very,
yeah,
very appealing for sure.
yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Um, So go through some of the comments. Chibuke says, I see Wissa as an Edward kind of signing. Yeah. Thing is, he doesn't fit the profile in terms of the age. I think Wissa's 28, that kind of
Yeah,
age. So yeah,
he's
if he
28,
was
then
younger,
that's not an Edwards type of signing.
that's
I'll
not
tell you
Edward.
right
No,
now.
no, no. That's definitely not. So in terms of playing wise, maybe, but not the age profile. I think it doesn't fit the bill. Kieran saying get him in terms of Martinez. Oh yeah, I would love to get um Lautaro Martinez. Inter will sell him for 120 million. Yeah, that's a crazy price as well. Spider LFC says it's not tactical with Diaz, it's a false nine drifting out wide instead of deep. He'll close down the space. Verts will occupy when he cuts inside. If Verts is only the 10 role, and there will be no false nine. Yeah, that's a fair assessment there as well. Yearly sponsor money is how Barca fund a big signing. Yeah, Spotify deal and all that stuff. That's what finances, I guess. Um,
Mhm.
Chibuki says, how much do you think Brentford will request for Wissa? I remember Nottingham Forest placing a bid of 20 million in January for Wissa, which got rejected. So maybe 30 million upwards. But as we mentioned, the player profile doesn't fit to our appointment
No,
strategy. We're not going to get a 28, 29-year-old striker. So it was just
yeah,
a name I thought I'd put out there because of what he's done in the last couple of years, but I don't think it's an option for us. Kieran said he's top class, of course, no Prem experience, and is used to playing in the front too. That's a interesting point there as well. It's slightly concerning, but he's one of the best strikers in the world. No chance of happening though. Yeah, I think if in the way we play, I think he would have fitted fine. But yeah, unfortunately, it's not the one for us. Other clubs are cherry picking other clubs' best players. We need to be quick in signings. But we're getting Verts, so we've been quick there. We've stolen him away from Bayern Munich, where everyone thought that was his destination. So, we've hijacked that deal. So, we've done some work there, I guess. But in terms of the striker market, that's a bit of a tougher nut to crack, if I'm being honest with you. Another player that, will probably gain more rave reviews the last few years, but not so much in recent times, is Dusan Vlahovic. Now, the
hmm
striker played 51 times, um, 15 goals, 5 assists, so not the best numbers in my opinion. Personally, I don't think he's the same level of player that he was a few years ago.
agreed
In
on
those
that.
times, he
Yeah.
was more quick, direct, aggressive, lethal in front of goal. I don't think he's good enough to lead the line for Liverpool. So personally, I don't think this is a viable option for us. What would your take be on Vlahovic?
If this was 3 years ago, or or 2, 3 years
Yeah.
ago, then yeah, um, I would be looking at this a little bit more sternly. But considering we've seen the progress of the performances that he's been getting, I think he's a little bit too rigid for Liverpool's attack. Um, I think he needs a system. Again, this is something that I've put out there. I've put out there in many different forums. I'm glad to see that it's starting to at least um, be echoed out there in the social circles that we keep as content creators, and that is when it comes to. Oh, I'm frozen up, I think. When it comes to, I don't know, my camera just froze up.
That's all right.
When it comes to our system primarily looks at emphasizing our wingers, not our striker, our wingers. It's the reason why it's not just with Slot; it's been with Klopp too. Our wingers have always been our main source of goals. So when it comes to um, working out a striker, you're going to have to find a striker that can possibly work with like getting deep in, tracking back and getting deep and having to work maybe even with this back to the goal, or even maybe being a link man that ends up being more of like your Bobby Firmino. Honestly, it's best comparison.
Yeah.
So, do I think that Vlahovic can do that? Not necessarily at all. He's not that type of striker. He's big, he's mean, he's clinical, he can do all different those kinds of things. But when it comes to, him being some type of point person that's going to be able to receive the ball and maneuver and do his thing from there, I don't see him being that person. And with that, why I emphasized about our output coming from our wings, because he's not a link man, because he's not some incredible player with the ball at his feet, because those different things aren't. He's not a facilitator.
Yeah,
He's just not. That's just not the kind of striker I see Slot going for personally.
I agree. I think he's not the right profile in terms of what we need in a team, and I think even in terms of what he brings to the table, I don't think he's efficient enough to lead the line for Liverpool. So yeah, for me, I probably agree with you. A few years ago, he would have been a more of a appealing prospect at the time because of the wave that he was doing. He's producing big numbers in Serie A, but I think with injuries and dipping form has definitely affected his sort of overall game. So for me, yeah, not a realistic option. Um, just gonna go through some of the comments. Spider LFC says Wissa, nope, would suit a false nine, but won't suit a Vets team. He requires a Shikres Ekitike, Akaluche type player. Kieran says Vlahovic isn't good enough. Reminds me of Hoyland. Hoyland's not actually a bad shot. It kind of is similar stylistically. Fozzie's well traveled. Big up Fozzie. Says yes, my bros. Like, and subscribe. Well, big up Fozzie. Appreciate your comment. Thank you for tuning in. Abdul says I want my striker to press the back four, assist, and get goals. Fozzie says 12 away from 500. Let's make it happen. You never walk on. Big up yourself, Fozzie. Thank you for your support there. Next striker. Marcus Thuram. So the reason why I've mentioned Marcus Thuram is because we were linked with him for quite a number of months. And I was always thinking, why are we linked with him? But he's a player that's interesting, but I don't think he's Liverpool quality. So in terms of his stats, 48 appearances, 18 goals, 9 assists, decent striker, can play across the line, can play left, can play on the right, can play centrally. For me, he would only be a viable sort of squad player rather than, the main man in this Liverpool team. Um, what would your take be on Marcus Thuram?
Look, one game does not make the man, However, that Champions League was not his best showing. It
It
wasn't
wasn't.
any of their best showings.
Yeah, true.
I think he's more of he'd be in this league, he'd be more of like a tall winger hybrid style
Yeah.
forward. Um, he's got some deceptive acceleration, I'll admit that. But he's not an out and out striker.
No.
Covers multiple roles, but he's not an out and out striker. He'd be excellent for rotation, obviously, because of that, for those reasons. But I just, I just don't see it.
No. I agree. I don't see it. That's why I was quite confused as to why we were so heavily linked to him a few months ago, but those rumors have quieted down, so there's probably no truth to that at all. But thought it was a player that I mentioned. Now, this is the one that a few people in the chat have mentioned is Matteo Retegui. I'm sure that's how you pronounce his name. So this season, 49 appearances, 28 goals, 9 assists. So not a bad return for a striker. However, I would have reservations about signing Retegui. I don't want to sound stereotypical, but it's on the basis that Italian strikers don't seem to do well, especially in recent times in the Premier League. The last Italian striker that was signed in the Premier League was Scamacca for West Ham, and he actually had a good reputation in Serie A before he came, and his spell at West Ham failed miserably. So for me, not an option that I would personally consider. What do you make of the player? Do you think that is a player that Liverpool should be looking at to sign this summer?
Oof. Again, like you said, very notable Italian. It could be. He's definitely shows aggressiveness in Serie A. He can be clinical. He's got some real poacher instincts. I would say though he reminds me. I would say that he reminds me. This is maybe this is a poor shout. So you can tell me if I'm wrong in the chat. I'm sure you will, or those in the comments when you watch some of the replay. But I would say he's closer to a Diego Costa than a Bobby Firmino.
Okay.
Maybe.
Diego Costa. I don't know if I'd say Diego Costa.
Okay.
I think because maybe because I've been looking at because I mentioned
You're
Gyökeres
about to
earlier. I
say,
thought he was short.
because of his height. You're about to say because of his
Yeah.
height.
So, um,
Let me look.
who
Let me
do
look
you
up how
remind me?
tall he is.
Let me see it. Yeah. So let me. Retic, how tall is he? He doesn't look like he's the tallest of players, to be fair.
Oh, I'm
How
not.
tall
I'm
is
not thinking that he's tall, but I would
Six
probably.
foot one, so
He's tall.
he's
He's
decent
tall.
height. Yeah,
That's tall.
that's tall. That's tall. He doesn't look it when he's running. Maybe it's just the stance when they're running. It's like
I'm
it's
telling you, my people out there, especially my Reds. One of our
the.
fellow Reds is apparently some Shaquille O'Neal height up in here.
I'm really
Because
not. I'm
he
really
thinks
not.
everybody's tiny.
But I would have reservations of him. Like in terms of what the finishes he's produced, like if you watch his compilation, yeah, he's 2 footed as well. Like, as in he's very clean with his left foot, and he's got a good finish on him as well. I just don't know if he's equipped to play in the Premier League. For a number of reasons in terms of the game, the lifestyle, different cultures. Like there's a lot of factors involved, and just due to history of Italian strikers joining the league, it hasn't worked out. So that would be my reservations. In signing a player, I think Chibuki said that he's got a 40 million release clause, which isn't very high, to be fair. Whether Liverpool take a punt remains to be seen, but I'm not too sure if Liverpool will. Spider FC said Martin isn't 27 surely. Dude is the wing coming of Kanu, who's like been around for 25 years. Yeah, he's been around for a while, to be fair. He came over to Europe when he was like 18, 19. So yeah, that's why I feel like he's been around for a long time. Um, Chibuke said Rotigu is a player that scored 25 goals, 6 assists, scored 10 goals, right foot, 10 goals, left foot, 5 goals with a header, progressive. Prime Jota is describing him as okay. That's his comparison there. Kieran said, I rate Turan. I've watched a lot of him in Serie A this season. Strong hold up playing pretty quick. I disagree that he isn't a number 9 type striker. Uh, Spider FC says Martinez reminds me of Morientes, but younger if he came. Morientes is a shout. Um, I'll say Martinez a bit more quicker, a bit more skillful in comparison to Morientes, but finishing wise, yeah, I can see that. Rotigu is an Argentine, but nationality in Italy. His release cost is 50 million euros. Okay, so that would be about 40 million pounds. Very good player. I watched him always. Be interested to see what happens with him. Um, Spider said people are sleeping on Jalen Dan's working with Burts very easily. He's going back to Sunderland, but one for the future. Therefore, I think he definitely needs a long move for his development. I think once he's played, real men's football, because obviously he's playing under 23, there's a mixture of youth and experienced players. Once he gets that under his belt, then I think we'll be able to assess him to see if he's ready to make the cut at Liverpool. I hope he does, because what I've seen of him, playing in the youth team, he's very, very talented. So let's see. I still think he has a future at the club, to be honest with you. Okay, next player. I've got a couple more targets left, and is a name that's probably not a popular name. I would say is Mika Bieref. Now he's, I guess, a bit of a wild card. He was making a bit of noise a few months ago as he went on a bit of a purple patch. He scored like 9 goals in 9 games. He recently joined Monaco in January from Sturm Graz. So his stat for Monaco from January is 19 appearances, 13 goals, and 3 assists. He's a Danish international. He's actually homegrown as well because he came through the ranks of Arsenal. So maybe a name to look out for next season, as I think if he becomes or if he produces a prolific season again, I can see a Premier League side trying to sign him next summer. Is he a player that you're familiar with, 12th man?
I watch very little of Austrian league, but
Yeah.
I did catch a few games simply because of Bajcetic being out there
Yes.
and um, Mika. I would have to say it's a. I don't think that this is probably an option considering just what you said. Arsenal. He is. He does Arsenal still have an actual relation with the player still, or meaning is he out on loan at Sturm Graz?
No, so they sold him to Sturmgras and then they end up selling him to Monaco. So he's a Monaco player now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know enough about him to be able to say I would go
Yeah.
yes or no on him.
I think he's a name
I would only say no simply because he was an Arsenal player, but that's
yeah.
all.
He's definitely a name to kind of to remember or one to watch because I think if he does have a great season again
Then
for
that's the story.
Monaco,
Yeah.
then I feel like a return to the Premier League could be on the cards. I don't think he actually officially made an appearance for the Arsenal first team. He was in the sort of in the surroundings, or he was playing more youth level. So it could be something that we see in the future. Spider LFC says only 15 goals in Italy. Vlahovic stock has gone right down. Yeah, it has to be fair. Spider LFC says cam overheating. If you have a cam app on, turn it off. I think that might be for you, 12th man. He says happens sometimes on his show when I forget. Thank you for your advice there. Spider LFC says I like him Vlahovic to Chiesa drop off top tier to mids. Yeah, shame about Chiesa. I feel like Chiesa still has it in his locker though. I still feel like there's a player that can definitely show his true quality that we've seen over the years. So I still got faith in him. This player, I'm not sure if people are going to be familiar with him, is Nick Voltemad. I haven't butchered his name there. So he is a striker that plays for Stuttgart. Very interesting profile. He's 6'6", so he's tall. 12th man. I've not viewed him
There
as a
you
midget.
go.
So
There you go. All
he's
right.
tall.
Hey, there
He,
he's tall.
he's very very tall. So 33 appearances, 17 goals, 3 assists. For a tall guy, he's actually not bad. Like he's got good movement, good first touch, got a bit of turn of speed about him. He hasn't been linked to a move to Liverpool, but there is strong rumors circulating that Roma are apparently entering talks to sign the striker. A player that I've not seen much of. I'm not sure if you have either, but I thought I'd mention it as a
Mhm.
wild card to see if this could be an option where maybe we go for a different profile. Maybe we go for that tall striker. Where aerial challenges or aerial sort of distribution might be on the horizon in terms of creativity. Is he a player that you've seen much of?
Stuttgart. Honestly, not religiously do I watch
No.
Bundesliga. I will admit that, but I do watch some games, or I do watch some of their matches. I do know that he played for Werder Bremen because I did see him when he played for them. But he's got what, 5 goals? How many goals did you say he has?
So this season he scored 17 goals in all competitions in 33
17
appearances.
goals in all competitions. How many goals does he have in the Bundesliga?
Let's have a look. I'll quickly check.
Yeah,
That's in all
probably like
competitions.
5 or 6 or something like that, right?
If that's it, that's not very good, is it? Let's have a look. So in the league, he played 28 times in the league, 12 goals and 2 assists this season.
12 goals
Yeah, in the league.
in the league.
In 28, it's not
So he's
too
got
bad.
17 overall. So the number
17
I
overall, yeah.
so the
So
number
in
I
the
looking from
German
the
club,
top.
he's got 5
Yeah.
and 5.
Okay. Yeah. That's a hard pass.
Mm.
No offense to the
Kieran's,
player. I don't know too much about him, to be honest with you.
yeah,
Like
I
I'm
don't
not
know too much from either.
abreast to how
Yeah.
good or what his potential is or anything like that. But it's more so the sheer fact that I know that he was on loan at Werder Bremen, and then he went on a free to Stuttgart. So I get he's a breakout star, but he's inexperienced, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And he's just too raw to bring to a Liverpool team and expect to get the type of numbers that you're trying to get out of that role of a player. But he is he's I know that he plays for a good team and more power to him. But yeah, I would move past that one.
No, that's a fair assessment. I do think he's quite raw. Kieran's actually hit the nail on the head there. He said it's surprising enough he's better with his feet than his head. So from
Yeah,
what I've
he's a
seen,
skilled dribbler.
he's a very good ball carrier, very good dribbler of the ball. So kind of like Peter Crouch, where Peter Crouch wasn't pronounced to be, best at headering, even though he's got a good, I think,
Mhm.
numbers in terms of having the most headers in the Premier League.
If I'm going to
But
Stuttgart, though, I'm going with Stiller. I would sooner try to make a move for Angelo Stiller than I'd go for.
yeah, that's a midfield target that I would like us to go for too. I think he'd be a
Yeah.
great addition to our team. So yeah, hopefully we can be in discussions with Stuttgart, but it'll probably be for his teammate more than himself. And Spy FC says a goal every 2.2 games for Volkmar. So yeah, he's an interesting profile. It looks like he could be heading to Syria.
Yeah,
So
interesting
it'll be interesting
prospect,
to
but we're
see.
not looking for prospects. That's
Yeah,
how I see it.
exactly. Uncle Roz is a
Uncle Rod's in the
big
house.
up my family. Rob, big up Uncle Roz. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning.
Big
Guys,
up.
please make sure to subscribe to Uncle Roz's
Absolutely.
channel. Great content creator, great friend of the channel as well. Let's got a comment here. At the end of the day, whoever plays up front is going to be supplied by Verts, Maka, Grav, and uh, that's only 4 players. There's more players to add to that. Salah, Sabozlai. We've got good good proper players there that will provide plenty of service for that striker. So whoever that is going to be, we'll soon find out very, very soon. And the last target, I have to mention him. I had to mention him at some point, is Harry Kane. Now, bit shameless of me to mention him, considering the fact that we've just stolen a player from Bayern's hand, and of course that player is Florian
He was
Wirtz.
never a Bayern Munich player.
They thought they had him. They thought they had him, but we stole the mark from the German team there. But Kane apparently, if you believe the rumors, has a release clause of £50 million. This season, his stats are going to be crazy. 46 appearances, 38 goals, 13 assists. So that's 51 GA in 46 games. So unbelievable stats from Harry Kane as always. But if I come back to reality, I don't think it's a realistic target. Even if we were to activate this release clause, I'm pretty sure that Bayern Munich will do everything in their power to block that move. Do you think there's any chance of us pursuing Harry Kane this summer?
Wow. Let me look at what there was on. Let me see if I can find it. It's a simple number because I'm going to openly admit that this player is in my top 3. I rate Harry Kane. I think he is obviously the best English forward in the market, much less in the world. I also think that Harry Kane is a phenomenal talent in himself. I think that he fits the role of a 9, a proper 9, outright number 9. He could be a false 9 if you wanted him to be a false 9 too. He's good with the ball at his feet. He's able to play with the ball. He's a complete forward. Complete forward. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that he's 31, I believe, or something like that, 30 some odd years, he's in his 30s now. If it wasn't for that, then I think that 50 million should have been triggered yesterday. But because of such, do I think it's going to get triggered? Probably not. I honestly do, though. I would make an argument. This is, if you want to hear my argument for it, I'll give it to you. I would make an argument And I know that he makes a lot of money. I was going to look up how much he makes. Maybe you could just check that out for us. I think he makes like some ridiculous number. But I would make an argument to bring Harry Kane to Liverpool for one reason. The reason is he wants Shearer's record. And that is something I believe he does want to be remembered for, as being the all-time greatest scorer in English history. You don't get that close just to give up on it because you're winning Bundesligas. Okay. Do I think that Germany's Bayern Munich is going to be a contender for Champions League? They're a contender every year because they're going to most likely win Bundesliga and be a representative. They obviously won the Bundesliga, so he's got a title. Fantastic. But one thing that English player covets is a Prem. The one thing that he would covet as an individual award would be that scoring title. He's not getting it if he goes to any other if he tries to come back to he's not getting it unless he comes back to a competing team in the Premier League. And real quick, I'll land here. If you look at the top six, it's definitely not going to Arsenal. That's a joke.
Yeah.
You can give him all the money in the world. He's not going to Arsenal.
No.
He's not going to Newcastle because Isak's already there.
Yeah.
Manchester City could have been a shout, but not anymore that they have Haaland on a 10-year deal. That's just not happening.
Forgot about that.
Okay. So now you're starting to round out the top six. Is he going to Chelsea? That could be a arguable shout because Chelsea will pay for anything. Okay. But I don't think that would settle well for him to go to Chelsea, another London club. Okay.
Yeah.
And the fact of, I know they're not direct rivals like an Arsenal versus Arsenal's and Spurs, but I just don't see it happening.
No, definitely not.
He's not going back to Spurs. And even if he did go back to Spurs, he's not winning a Prem with Spurs. No. And then that looks like he's just there for his own individual efforts and endeavors. That leaves one team, really. Not going to Man U, by the way. Because I'm talking about teams that are on the first page of the Premier League, not the second page. Okay. The only reason why I brought up Spurs is because that's his old team. Okay.
Yeah. History there.
Let's be honest. There's only one team that he could go back to where he could be a natural fit, that he would be an absolute perennial scorer for, that he would ball out with a Salah on the right side, with whoever you want to put on the left side, whether it's Chiesa, whether it's Cody, whether it's Lucho, whoever. Harry Kane would be absolutely phenomenal in this team. And that's why I would say I'd make a real qualified effort to say, hey, if you want to come back, you want to win a Prem, you want to do a double with us, maybe, or maybe a treble. You could be one of those people that go out on such an amazing high because you've only got arguably 2, maybe 3 years left of being a top tier starter for a top tier club. Do you want to do it in Germany and run out your career? Or do you want to do it with Liverpool and win English glory? Cool. Decision's yours. That's how
it's a great argument. I feel like we need to hire you to pitch that to Harry.
Right.
I think you would have won him over. You might have convinced him about the Shearer record. Because I think that's something strikers will always, have in the back of their mind. Because Salah talks about records all the time. So, the strikers do think about stuff like that. So, and also, he's broken that voodoo of, not winning any silver. He's won silverware now. So, if he wants to leave Bayern Munich, his stint at the club will still be a success because he's won silverware there.
He got them back. He got them back.
exactly. So it's not. It wouldn't be a bad time for him to move on, if that makes sense. So
Right.
this would be a great signing. It ticks all the boxes. The fee's £50 million if that is the release clause.
Did you
That's
see
not a
his?
lot.
Did you look up what he makes though?
So he earns 400K a week.
And that's pounds, right? That's pounds.
That's in pounds, yeah. So for the year, he earns 25 million euros.
Right.
So that's the only stumbling block,
Right.
I would say.
He would have to most likely, and most notably, take a significant pay cut.
Yeah.
But is
But
it worth cementing yourself
yeah.
into English football history? Some can already say he's there. I get that. But that would certainly
Oh
put
yeah.
him there. If he's got a Prem title, if he's got a Champions League, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Even if he's got an FA Cup, he could flex
Yeah.
a little bit. These are all
Yeah.
things that he never achieved at Spurs, by the way.
Yeah. It's a great argument. We need to get you on board.
Yeah.
FSG hire a 12th man
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do the
yeah,
sales
yeah.
pitch. We need to get you on board. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Firstly, thank you so much to 12th man for your time. We've done 2 hours and 41 minutes today, so appreciate your time as always. Please let the people know where to find you on social and where to find your channel so they can subscribe after the show.
Yeah, easy said and done. It's Liverpool 12th man, as it says right here on all socials. Just you type that in, and I most likely will be the first page, channel, face, whatever that will pop up on your search. And it only takes a subscribe. I'm not asking for your money or anything like that. I'm just asking for your support, especially if you're a red. I'm asking for your support because realistically, I believe wholeheartedly in supporting all Reds in every endeavor that they do when it comes to representing this club and representing the fan base. And I think that most notably, we are a club that's different than other clubs, and it should continue to be witnessed and recognized from our fan base that the same bar of excellence and brilliance that we put for our team and our players, I put that same bar for our fan base. So hopefully continue to step it up, subscribe, hit the like button, subscribe to Ozzy, make sure you're hitting that notification bell. And if you could do me the same honor and the same blessing, I would appreciate that too.
I appreciate it. I've just sent a comment on the live chat to your link. So please, guys, make sure you subscribe to Liverpool 12 Man's channel, producing great content. I feel like you're doing content every day. So,
Yeah, it's
the
pretty much.
work ethic
This is like my
has never
second
stopped.
job. This is like my first job almost, really.
Listen, YouTube is not a joke. So please, guys, show your support for Liverpool 12 Man. The work ethic is definitely there. I feel like he's online every day. So always producing great content. Even if you're not a Liverpool fan, he's always having great football debates. So it's
Yeah,
definitely worth a
yeah.
follow. And
I've
yeah,
been opening it up a little bit more with it's not just always discussion on we do everything Liverpool, but we
yeah,
also open up the banks so that we can speak on a couple different things like what's going on with the rest of the league, or maybe what's going on with some of our rivals as they work their way out of the mud, or something like that. So
exactly.
it's always a
Exactly.
fun time. It's always a fun time. Quizzes, trivia, sometimes guests. Hopefully, we can get Oz on our channel soon.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
No, big up. Just got a few comments there. Spider LFC says, good show, lads. Haven't been here before. Appreciate you coming on, Spider LFC. Hopefully, you subscribe to my channel and, of course, subscribe to Liverpool 12 Man's channel as well. He says it owns free season tickets, so that's pretty cool. Kieran says, great stream, guys. Big up yourself. Ozan Kabak says, great show, lads. And he says, big up to his boxing coach, that is Spider LFC. And JK says top LFC fans, you never walk alone. Press the like button, you know, welcome. Big up yourself, JK. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. So many people that have been involved today. I'll give a few shout outs. Shout out to Lee, shout out to Oz and Kabak, shout out to JK, Ivan, Shirokov. I need to see if that's actually Ivan from Twitter because that's quite cool. You've got Salah, Toya, Jackson. You've got Chris Henry. We've got Chibuke. Big up yourself, Chibuke. Thank you for your comments today. Bertie, Kieran. Big up, Kieran. And then hopefully I haven't killed your vibe in regards to Conchalo Ramos there. Um, who else do we have? Uh, Abdul. Big up Abdul as always. And we've got Raji Painting. Big up yourself. Aspire LFC. And if I haven't said your name, apologies. But yeah, big up to everyone for your engagement. Thank you for tuning in, guys. In terms of upcoming content, I will be doing another transfer related show. We're doing a Liverpool Transfer Talk show on Thursday. So hopefully we'll get some further news. Maybe it'll be Verts Wednesday tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe we'll get further updates on other deals, including the Kirkes one. So make sure to look out for that on Thursday night. And that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.